I'm on my way, chat. We doing this. And we are live. Welcome to the NFL First Look Week 4 edition. This NFL season is going faster than I kind of wanted to. I've enjoyed it so far. I didn't expect to say that. It is Sunday, October 1st. Where in the world did 2023 go? Ripping through these months. I am Josh Engleman. You can follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman. Gonna be fun. Lots of games to talk about. We're gonna whip our way through this entire slate. Running backs, wideouts, tight ends, quarterbacks, defense. We're gonna set the table, fluff everybody up, and get them ready for the NFL Deeper Dive, which comes up immediately after this. Joseph Ramirez, I know you're in chat. I know you're listening. I don't want to talk about yesterday. Chat, you're getting this from me. I don't care if you are here to listen to me talk about the NFL for the next 30 minutes. You are going to listen to me bitch about Liverpool from yesterday's match for at least 30 seconds. We got hosed, folks. The referees are against us. And not only did they already have to put out a statement, but those referees have already been suspended. Can you imagine if they just took a touchdown off the board for one of your favorite teams? You just didn't get it, even though it was a clear touchdown. Yeah. That was my life yesterday. So I drank my feelings a little bit, ate my feelings too. Had some really good carne asada quesadilla. Good times. Good times. Is Loughy on today? That's a question in chat. Yes, he is. Loughy will be up at 10 o'clock. I will talk about that show in a little bit, but I really don't have too much time to just randomly rant on this show. So we're going to start off this mimosa morning with cheers. Enjoy that, everybody. I'm going to take a little sip of this, and then we're going to talk some football. Larry, no pizza bites. I haven't had any pizza bites in a pretty long time. Like, really long. I don't think I've had pizza bites this calendar year. Which kind of makes me sad. It's a great food. Everyone should eat pizza bites constantly. Everybody, like, it's just pizza flavored paste inside of a little bit of dough. Who doesn't want that? It's too good. All right. Hit that like button if you haven't done it yet. 450 people in the door. We're already up to 60. We could run this one north of 100 pretty quickly. Time to get into it. Let's talk running backs. And I'm going to start it off with the guy that I think is very clearly the best option that you can get to at the running back position for today. I expect him to be probably the most owned just because of his salary, will be up there. One of the most owned running backs, that's for sure. That's going to be Kyren Williams. $6K is too low of a price tag for the workload that I expect him to have. The matchup in particular looks pretty good, I guess. Indy's run defense via PFF is 10th. That's not scary. You know, it's slightly better than average. I just don't care at 6K. I think he's on a completely different planet because of that price tag. That's the guy that I want to get to. But then we go to the top of the salary tier at running back, and you see Christian McCaffrey sitting at a crisp $9,200, $1,400 cheaper than Tony Pollard. That is a massive salary gap at the top, especially for someone in McCaffrey that is projecting to get sizable ownership. It's not as if his price tag is stopping people from rostering him. Currently in our ownership projections, he is in the top spot. I don't think he'll be as easy to roster as we get closer. Like, you know, the difference between 20 and 19 isn't going to matter all that much, but I don't see any problem paying up for Christian McCaffrey in this spot. Why not? What matchup is going to be better than this one? Now, I understand that Arizona was able to knock off the Cowboys last week. I don't think they're going to be doing that every single week. They're still terrible. I think we can all agree, not a great team. I think McCaffrey just lets loose. I want any amount of Christian McCaffrey that I can get to at 9,200, I think warrants his ownership. I do think he should be around 20% owned, and in any sort of larger field contest, eat that chalk if you need to. Salary is worth it. As you work your way down into that non-extreme salary tier, we're talking Tony Pollard at 7,800. We're talking Josh Jacobs at 7,100. Dallas obviously has a date with New England today. That's a little scary for Tony Pollard at 7,800. I don't have a single share of him as of right now. I am very low on Pollard. And when I say a single share, I am not playing 150 lineups on DraftKings today for football. I usually play the smaller field stuff on DK. I will be maxing OwnersBox, sponsor of this show. We will talk about OwnersBox in a little bit, but that is the contest that I will be in bulk. So it is a tough spot for Pollard. Ownership is there. He is getting some love, but the New England defense, that's not fun. The good thing for Tony Pollard is that he doesn't have any real competition. Revenge narrative for Zeke on the opposite side? I don't know. Josh Jacobs, kind of the same as Pollard, $700 cheaper, probably going to be in the exact same range for ownership. These are going to be the first, I think Kyren Williams, McCaffrey, Pollard, Jacobs, those four guys are probably the four guys you're paying attention to the most at running back to start. Sifting through those three expensive guys is probably the most difficult thing to do. I'm personally ranking it McCaffrey, Jacobs, Pollard. Your mileage may vary. Oh, Spambots already into chat. Welcome, NFL Free Live Go, NFL OTV, com. Nice to see you here. Maybe sign up, send in a super chat or something, bot. We'll let you stick around if you send in a super chat if you want to be a bot. That's what we're looking at for the top of this list. That's what we're looking at in terms of potential cash options, but those aren't the only guys that are going to be pulling some love. Miles Sanders is expected to play 5,800. I think he'll be in that 10 to 15% ownership range. Alexander Madison, Joe Mixon, James Cook, Zach Moss for 6K. Pay attention to Zach Moss's ownership in relationship to Kyren Williams' ownership. I think that becomes a very interesting discussion point because Zach Moss is going to be pulling ownership at that value number, but he's never going to look as good as Kyren Williams does on a point per dollar basis. However, we're talking about two guys going up against each other in the exact same game at the exact same price tag. Interesting dynamic for roster construction. Do you play them both? Do you swap out a chalky Kyren Williams for a Zach Moss for a different sort of construction? It's a tricky one. You don't normally see two running backs in the same game just set at the same price tag. I think it's interesting. I would prefer to get to Kyren Williams and eat that ownership. I think he's just that much better of a play, but I'm not going to sleep on Zach Moss either. Already up to the 100 like mark. Love seeing it. So in my limited lineups, I mentioned McCaffrey, Jacobs, Mixon, Miles Sanders, Madison. I also have to mention the guy that I'm getting to that I don't want to get to. This is going to be a talking point across a lot of shows. It's been an absolutely awful experience thus far. I think everybody's going to know where we're going here for it. The Las Vegas Raiders are currently ranked 25th in run defense on PFF, so we're through 3 weeks. I will be playing Josh Kelly again. Shame me. Yeah, Larry C gets it. Shame me, point and laugh, call me dumb. I don't blame you. It did not work 2 weeks ago. He was awful. It did not work last week. He was awful. I can't get away yet. I would rather him be awful for 3 straight weeks while I play him than not play him today and find out that this is the week that it's happening. I can't handle something like that. So I am going to get to Josh Kelly. I don't want to say that he's the floor of running backs for me. He is the guy that I'm getting to the most as I work my way down that salary tier. I think Dameon Pierce for 5,100 looks all right. Jaylen Warren for 5K looks all right. These are not guys I want to get a lot of exposure to. The guy that I expect to have the most ownership as a pay down option is going to be $4,700 Khalil Herbert. I think he's fine. I don't mind that price tag at $4,700, but it's not a priority. If I'm prioritizing running backs for today, if I just want to rank them for you guys, if you want to know who the guys are that are going to make you win more frequently, Kyren Williams 1, Christian McCaffrey 2, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, Zach Moss. Those are my top 5 running backs for today. I hope you guys have the same luck that I have when I roster them. We are moving good. Moving good. I don't even know what that could have meant. 770 viewers here already. We're going to now dive in to the wide receivers. Make sure you're hitting that like button. Before we touch on the wide receivers, we got to talk at least a little bit about what's happening for the rest of today. I am obviously kicking this one off. I'm going to take you guys up for the next 15 minutes or so, and then we're going to get out of here, turn it over to the NFL Deeper Dive. Loughy, Ben, Chris Spags. They're going to go an hour and a half, hour 45, breaking down every single game on today's slate. No rest. They're giving you every single bit of it. You want to stick around. It is the best DFS NFL show that exists. You'll know that from the amount of viewership that shows up on it. Eric Lindquist and Matt Gajewski are going to be your NFL Live Before Lock crew. They will take you from the end of the NFL Deeper Dive all the way up until lock on this lovely Sunday. You don't have to do anything. This stream doesn't change. Stay here. Don't move. Keep it open. You'll be here all the way until 1 o'clock with us. So make sure you hit that like button, because if we could run that number up, maybe you get even more content on an NFL Sunday. We're also not done there. 7:15 Eastern time tonight. NFL Showdown Live Before Lock. You get EMAC. You get Neil. We got some football tonight. I think there's like a fairly popular player playing today. Am I right? Well, what's the Sunday night game? I think there might be some news in the NFL recently that will make this Sunday night game a little bit more interesting. Kansas City Chiefs, New York Jets. Imagine if Aaron Rodgers was healthy. It's a shame that this game isn't going to be all that interesting, but maybe Taylor Swift is hanging out with Travis Kelce again, doing some smooches. Let's go to the wide receivers. All right. Couple guys pulling some pretty sizable ownership today at wide receiver. Where you want to go, sort of based on salary. Tippy top. You got Justin Jefferson at 9,600. You've got Tyreek Hill at 9,200. I don't know about you guys, but I certainly prefer the $400 savings on Tyreek Hill. That dude is so much fun to watch play. Now, taking on Buffalo. Not a great matchup. Buffalo's D in coverage via PFF this season. They are second. This could be a difficult spot for Tyreek Hill, or he just transcends it. I'm willing to get there, but I don't think that's the most interesting spot for wide receivers today. I want to work my way down a little bit further, save a little bit of money, and maybe we take a look at Keenan Allen. Now, everybody's going to like Keenan Allen. He is going to be the most popular wide receiver. Barring any like really weird news, I don't know how you don't play Keenan Allen at 7,900. Mike Williams out, knee is torn. This is, to me, pretty good chalk. We know why Keenan Allen's getting that ownership. Are there guys around him that you could pivot to at minimal ownership? Your Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, A.J. Browns of the world? Yeah, there are options around his salary. He's very clearly the best guy that you could pay up for today because his role is just, everything is him in the passing game. That said, I really do like Jamar Chase a lot today. 7,800. So he's sitting $100 cheaper than Keenan Allen. Is he pulling some ownership? Yeah. He's 14% owned currently. I think that's about right. That is half of Keenan Allen. But I think Jamar Chase is in a really nice spot. As I look at Tennessee, should we be worried about their defense? Because I'm not. 18th in coverage on PFF, 24th in the pass rush. Give me all the Jamar Chase that I can get to. He is currently my most exposed wide receiver, with Keenan Allen just behind that mark. And then another piece of easy chalk to get to, Puka Nacua, 6,700. Looks good. Taking on the Colts. Not at all worried about the Colts, although their pass rush is solid. Not the same sort of scenario in coverage. Colts are 26th in coverage. So if we're pointing out just the best wide receivers that you can get to, the most owned guys that I totally agree with, Keenan Allen, Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, all those guys look great. I think Tank Dell looks pretty interesting at 4,600 if you're looking for value. I don't think that Adam Thielen is that big of a problem. Doesn't feel like you should be rostering Adam Thielen, but at 4,500, a guy that I have my eye on. Josh Palmer is going to get some ownership today now that Mike Williams is out. Not the only Josh that I'm trying to get to from the Chargers. We need to go that direction twice. Both Joshes. It's Josh Palmer for sure. Oh, everything's coming up Josh. Josh Palmer, Josh Kelly, Josh Jacobs, Josh Engleman. All of these things are going to be great. So many good Joshes today. It's time. You got to build the Josh lineup. Unfortunately, you can't put me in a lineup, but I would be worth a lot of points for you. Robert Woods is a guy that I'm getting to at 4,300. Looks like a decent value. I touched on Josh Palmer. If you're paying down today, I think the best pay down wide receiver that you're going to get to, Calvin Austin, 3,300. Probably going to be in that 10%-ish ownership range. That's the way that I want to go. Tyler Mattis says, ownership hasn't updated since September. I see what you're doing there. Yesterday was September. Mimosa hitting the spot. I hope you guys have mimosas as well. That makes everything better. Everybody needs a little pick me up at 9:30 in the morning on a Sunday after a long day of watching soccer. We got running backs done. We got wide receivers done. We got about 10 minutes to go before I hit every other position. But you know where we got to go. You see it on the banner at the top of the screen. This is the most important thing for you guys today. OwnersBox is the sponsor. You guys need to sign up at OwnersBox. I'm going to tell you the reasons why you should do that right now. It's twofold. One comes from OwnersBox. The other comes from us. On the OwnersBox side, if you click the link in the description of this video, they are going to match your first deposit up to $500. So if you put in 500, they're going to match with 500. Now you get it in OwnersBox. It trickles out at like a 4.5% rate. I'm more than halfway done clearing it in the first 3 weeks of this season. So it happens pretty quickly. Plenty of NFL contests to go around. Sign up and get that money. I put in 500 to get the other 500. But if you don't have it, if you can put in 100 to get another 100, you're just starting off with a better bankroll. But we need to talk about what this contest is. $175K kickoff contest, $35K to first. They're willing to take in 13,875 entries. For the past 2 weeks, same size contest, hit about 10K. We had overlay all 3 weeks. At the very least, I expect this to be a spot where we get reduced rake. I think it'll still be overlay, but we're going to get some reduced rake. This is, and I've said it week 1, week 2, and week 3. This is the best contest that you could enter anywhere in the industry on any site at any time because of the amount of overlay that's here. If you can reduce, this is basically like taking out a loan without an interest rate. If you can get into contests that don't really cost you any money to get in other than the fee itself, if we're removing the rake, you will long-term be a significantly more successful player in DFS. Do not sleep on these opportunities. This is the best thing you can enter. I'm already in it and maxed like I was for the past couple of weeks. This is the smartest contest for you to enter. Think about it here. If you're entering 1 or 2 lineups today, if you're just a $15 a day guy, this is the contest to enter. One lineup in this OwnersBox contest is better than you can put it anywhere else. The big fun piece of OwnersBox, because I'm burying the lead, I think. I don't have to care about defense. I don't have to care about kicker. We've got a super flex. We're getting 2 quarterbacks out there, lots of offense, way more fun. Sign up at OwnersBox. And then get our Sims. That's the big news here. 1 week of our NFL Sims max package if you're signing up using that link in the description. You got to deposit at least $10, but like I said, deposit more. The Sims tool will cover you for everything on OwnersBox. You can generate 10,000 lineups in like a minute, simulate them all against each other, get ROI numbers on players, stacks, the entire lineup. But you could also use it on DraftKings and FanDuel. You can use it tonight for Sunday Night Football or tomorrow for Monday Night Football. You're going to get it for a week. You're going to see what our premier NFL tool is for this season. Sign up using the link in the description right now. All right, we've got 5 minutes before I got to get out of here and turn this one over to the NFL Deeper Dive crew. We're up over 200 likes. You guys are the absolute best. Let's hit tight end. Couple guys we got to have our eye on. I think the best option that you're going to be able to find today at tight end, $3,400 Pat Freiermuth. That is the best combination, I believe, on this slate of upside and price. We don't have the Kelce's of the world. Hawk is in at 6,500. I'm not interested. Mark Andrews is there at 5,400. I'm not really that interested. I do think Kittle looks pretty good at 5,100. I do see a little bit more just wanting to go to value, whether that's Zach Ertz, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Okonkwo, Granson, Tanner Hudson. All of these guys basically look the same relative to salary. These are cheap tight ends where you're hoping to buy a touchdown at a relatively low amount. I don't like much at the top, so I see these guys as mostly interchangeable, but I think it's pretty clear that the best guy you can get to, the cash tight end for today, is Pat Freiermuth. Defenses. Ugh, is this ever fun? Last week was gross with the Bills putting a spanking on my Commanders. They commanded absolutely nothing last week. Maybe that can get a little bit better for them. They are not the defense du jour this week. As I look at it, highest owned defense for today, the cash defense for today will be the Cleveland Browns. Now, 2,800 for the Browns. Not going to lie, that's a little scary in this spot against Baltimore, but they are the team pulling the most ownership right now. The price tag looks great. I think the Eagles are in play too as a potential defense here against my Washington Commanders. But if you're paying 4,100 for them, I don't love it as much. They may be more optimal, but that's not as cost effective. I expect to get to the Browns. It's defense though, guys. I want to be very clear here. I don't care what defense ends up in my lineup. It doesn't matter to me at all. Whatever fits works. The Browns are the best one you can get to for a cash game. And then we close it out with quarterbacks. Looks like we're going to have an interesting quarterback slate. Sometimes this isn't that fun. Sometimes it is. Anthony Richardson looks like he's going to be the most owned quarterback, probably the cash option at 6,700. But we need to be aware that there's some garbage out there that you can play. Aiden O'Connell's the flat 4K. That's $1,000 cheaper than Sam Howell today. So you can get to a quarterback at 4K. Now, should we like him? I think the answer is probably no. It's not going to look good with Aiden O'Connell starting here for the Raiders. But at 4K, I don't think it's crazy because it really does unlock other things for you to do. If you want to go to an Aiden O'Connell, Devontae Adams combo, I don't think that that's all that crazy. Or, insert a different wide receiver here, Jacoby Myers if you want. I don't think it's insane to go all the way down to 4K, but it is not my priority. Anthony Richardson is the guy that you should get to the most. I do think Josh Allen is in a really nice spot. If that game breaks offensively, this could become a massive, massive scoring day. So I've got my eye on Josh Allen. I really do like Anthony Richardson, even at the ownership. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, so I'll allow Spags to handle this one on the next show, but I am going to say that Anthony Richardson looks good. Hope I'm not putting that jinx on Spags. I also am looking at a little bit, oh God, I don't even want to say this, but I think we have to. I think Russell Wilson is interesting. I think he's going to get a little bit of love. He's pulling about 7% ownership on our last run. It's not fun going to the Broncos. They've been kind of gross, but I don't really think it's Russ's fault. And today they get a date with Chicago. That's a much better spot because the Bears aren't great. Sorry to anybody that may be a Bears fan that listens to this show that has heard me talk negatively about the things that he does over and over again. What's up, AB? I assume you're watching. I'm sorry to talk ill of your Bears, but I want to get to a little bit of Russell Wilson as I look at it right now, because I'm out of here in 30 seconds and we turn it over to the deeper dive. If we want to just talk about the games that I am most exposed to, Rams Colts is that game for sure. Lots of Kyren Williams, lots of Puka Nacua, Anthony Richardson. I don't mind Granson as a tight end since I'm pulling this whole game. Zach Moss certainly grades out pretty well. You can go to Downs or Pittman, Tutu Atwell. There are options in the pass catching game. So that is the game that I have the most. My second biggest option for today after that one, Cincinnati, Tennessee. I love getting to Burrow. Give me Chase. Give me Higgins. Give me Boyd. Give me Okonkwo. I want all of it on the Cincinnati side. I'm a big believer. I think they're going to slowly get themselves right. I'm hoping Burrow feels a little bit better. Those are the two games that I have my eye on most, Cincinnati in particular. That's my team for today. Fields for 3 rushing tutties. I hope not. But what I do hope today, guys, is that you have some success. Please do not go anywhere. To the 1,200 of you that are sitting here right now, stay on this stream. NFL Deeper Dive coming up next. Loughy, Ben, Chris Spags. They are going to break down every single game in detail for you guys. You do not want to miss it. Win some money, guys. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
Times are tough. It's a Toy Story stream.
And with the countdown already. All right, let's go, dude. Hey, good morning. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Deeper Dive. Week 4, we're here already. 12 games. Actually have a game currently in progress in London, Atlanta, and Jacksonville. But only 12 games today. Then we got some bye weeks coming up for week 5. So it's going to trim things up a little bit, but we got you covered top to bottom. We'll be here with you probably till, let's not fool ourselves, 11:45 before we turn this over to the Live Before Lock crew. They're going to take you all the way up to 1 o'clock. Happy to have you guys with us as always. It's a beautiful day to be talking football. Dave Lockren at Loughy_D on Twitter. I've given up X. I tried.
Told you.
I gave it a valiant effort. It just sounds dumb. So follow me at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. And while you're there, say hello to Ben Rasa at JazzRaz DFS. What's good, brother?
Told you. I said I knew you were not going to stick with.
You didn't
X.
say that.
I did say that. And the good thing is every time I talk to you, it's on streams that are recorded so we can check the tape. But yeah, I'm feeling good. 12 games. Excited to dive into it.
And also with us, Chris Spags back in the seat again. We missed you last week, dude. Follow Chris at Chris Spags. Go do that. You might be new to the channel. You don't know Spags, but he's been here for a minute now. Good to have you back, man.
I missed you guys last week too. Live Before Lock is just such much more of a chaotic show. Like, try to get my lineups in advance. Then as I'm sitting there for that last hour, I'm like, should I tinker with them? Should I mess with them? Neil's doing his lineups. It's like, it's a whole ordeal where this show is fun because we just get to hop on. We get to show how much we know ball, talking game by game. Like, that's what I look for on my Sunday mornings.
Hell yeah, dude. Right. Then you get done. You still got over an hour to make the final tune-ups after the injury report comes out. It's good stuff. Hey, guys, if you haven't done so, take a single second, hit that thumbs up. We're at 271. Not bad by Josh, going solo show for like 25 minutes. Not bad. I think 500 should be quick work soon enough. If you ask Ben, he'll say we barely get to 300, but atone for your sins here, as Andy points out, on a wonderful Sunday morning. But there are places you could be, probably places you should be on a Sunday morning, but you're here listening to us talk about football. So the least you can do is subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up, and help support us around here if you appreciate this free content. John L. testify, Lafayette. God, I'm going to hell. Anyway, we got 12 games, and it's going to be fun. Spags, first thing, I mentioned this to both of you guys before we started the show. What a backwards week leading up to this week where it's like Jimmy Garoppolo's getting practices in. They're optimistic on Monday and Tuesday that he's going to play. He's out. Derek Carr, who they're considering week to week now, might play. Deebo Samuel didn't practice, and they hadn't played since last Thursday. He's expected to play, but then Eli Mitchell gets hurt in practice, and he's not expected. Like, the list goes on and on and on of guys that I thought probably had a good chance of playing that aren't, and guys who I thought were definitely out that are probably going to play now.
Yeah, Eli Mitchell being out did not make me feel great either as a longtime best ball bag holder for Eli. This is the week where theoretically it could be up 2, 3, 4 touchdowns going against the Cardinals. Maybe that's a shot to get his nut. And no, he's not going to get there this week. But concussion stuff is weird. Talked about that a little bit with us, with Loughy and Ben before the show. And Jimmy Garoppolo, self-reported concussion after the game last week. Then he was going through practice in limited fashion, was in the concussion protocol, but that now can mean you're in the protocol but not concussed. You just sort of had a flag there that they're worried about. And the rules are changing beneath our feet in a way that makes it, I guess, maybe a little bit of an edge for DFS, but mostly just makes it more work for poor guys like Loughy who've been doing shows 5 days a week.
Yeah, it definitely does, man. I loved Garoppolo and the Raiders this week. I really did. Are you getting to any Aiden O'Connell?
I think it could be worth a shot. I don't know if projection-wise he's going to land there. I have to rerun everything after the show, but I think it does make that side look a little bit less appealing in terms of full game stacks, but I think Jacob's still represented pretty well. Adams, I think you can still get to. And Brian Hoyer, I guess, could be the one starting. I don't know if, Loughy, if you saw who the starter was going to be, but if it's Hoyer, I think that's a much worse situation. O'Connell at least flashed in the preseason, but we've also seen guys in the preseason who flashed have played absolutely terrible to start the regular season, so that might not matter.
Yeah, I think it was expected. It's expected to be Aiden O'Connell, but we'll see.
It's exciting, at least for Raiders fans. They need some joy besides just painting their faces and fighting each other.
Yeah, having to lament players getting arrested and wild stuff out.
Going off
Anyway,
the deep end,
Ben, that's what we in the biz call a teaser. You ready to get into this?
Let's
Do it.
All right, let's make it happen. Washington and Philadelphia. All right, so here's the thing about this game, Ben. Last week, I can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts on this game. Sam Howell was sacked 9 times. There are bad performances, understandably. It's a long season. I'm not sure you could classify this as anything outside of disastrous for Sam Howell in Washington. 9 sacks. He's now taken 19 on the season. Dude's been absolutely terrible under pressure going up against this Philadelphia front. They can try to run the ball. I'm not sure what type of success they'll have. This line's moved from 8 to 9.5 as well. When you kick it off on the Washington side, the question isn't like, hey, do they win this game? That's less important to us here. But more so, if they're going to try and make some revisions after last week, make some improvements and figure things out against another team that can bring pressure, that can stuff the run, how do they do it? And is there any point, or is there any reason for us, and I'm not leading you here, I'm honestly curious, like, is there any reason for us to try and figure that out and find pieces for Washington today that might be going overlooked?
So you can always make a case for, you take a top end skill position player on a team that no one realistically is looking towards. And can you make a case for it? Yeah, but already your argument is getting pretty thin. And I'm kind of alluding to like the McLaurins of the world. That's a guy that when they fall behind, whoever Howell wants to throw the ball to should be pretty busy. But you mentioned that was a non-competitive, we do the Tuesday show, Loughy. I'm not even sure we mentioned Washington because of Denver and some of these other teams that truly disgraced themselves. But this was low-key awful. And I'm not sure it's going to get much better here. So I think right off the bat, Washington is a team, just looking at my lineups, I barely have any exposure to them. I don't know how you confidently deploy anyone on this team. And I think it's pretty warranted just given this slate.
What about you, Spags? Sometimes you like to get a little bit unique here. Any places to go for Washington?
I have some real big concerns about Howell in this spot. I think the Thursday night game for him, assuming that he's still starting then, coming up against the Bears, is going to look a lot better. This one, he's being pressured 41% of the time. The Eagles on the year also generating a 30% pressure rate. So you have to assume there's a pretty good shot of the same thing happening last week. And he's one of these guys, Sam Howell, that there's 3 QBs that really stand out that fall apart when they're pressured in the league. It's Jordan Love. We saw what happened in that situation Thursday night. Lamar Jackson, a surprising one, a -2 EPA on pressured plays for him so far in the year, but kind of makes sense to how he hasn't been maybe picking up that offense as well as you'd like to see. And then Sam Howell, he's got a -1.6 EPA on pressured plays, which is very bad. That basically means every time he drops back and gets pressured, he's giving up 1.6 points of expected points. So that's a pretty bad metric for him. And I think if the Eagles are already pressuring at a 30% rate naturally, he's given up 41% pressure against teams that might not even get pressure that much. He could be pressured on half his snaps tonight, and that could be absolutely god awful for him. So I got like 1 share of Terry McLaurin across 300 lines before the show. I can't see getting more than that because I just think they're not putting Howell in a spot to win.
I was listening to Josh beforehand and agree with him entirely that, like, when it comes to defenses, it doesn't really matter, Ben, right? You play defenses and whatever happens. Last week, it happened to be Buffalo dropping a 30 spot against this same Washington team that ended up being, tournament winner. I think it was them and Houston, as a matter of fact. And Houston was super cheap. I do want to ask you about the Philly defense just because they're expensive. And you've been someone recently that, when talking about some single entry and 3-max stuff, has kind of gone deep into the idea of, hey, you know what? I'm not like opposed to the idea of paying up for a defense if they're in a good spot, if it's going to be, potentially lower ownership or anything like that. As far as ownership, they're getting some. I think we have them at like 8% right now. But are you gonna have Eagles defenses in your lineups today at their price, second highest price defense?
So I think that the tricky part of it, when you pay up for defense, there's always kind of this caveat that has nothing to do with the situation. It's how much value opens up around the league. With every injury to a skill position player and there's pay down options, you start to have more and more money to kind of luxury spend. And right now, I'm not finding a ton of that. So I might get a share or two of Eagles defense, but more and more, I needed to pay sub 3K on DraftKings for my defense. And it wasn't because of the matchups. It's because we're going to talk about 20 wide receivers that I want that are about $7,500. And it made it really difficult to pay 4,000 for my defense.
What about when you're talking on the other side, Spags, where you've got this Eagles team? This is what's kind of tough, because on one hand, you look at the Eagles and you go, hey, and we'll get to Swift in a second, but I actually want to start with some of these pass catchers. You go, okay, well, this is a team that has actually a relatively, a pretty concentrated target share. You look at AJ Brown on the season, he's sitting north of 30%. And then behind him, you've got somebody like Devonta Smith that's at 23%. Goddard's at 17, and there's pretty much nobody else. You had Zacchaeus last week in that Monday Night Football game, sure, with the touchdown. Gainwell a little bit, but it's mostly been these two guys and then some Dallas Goedert just getting thrown to behind the line of scrimmage. The problem is their run play or their pass play percentage this year is minuscule. So it's great to see all of that, but they're passing at 47% on the season. So how do you come to terms with an offense like this that if they can and they play with a lead is going to run the ball 35 times if it's in the cards?
It's tough, I think, when you expect the Commanders to not have great results on offense. And then also, the Eagles, I think this year, and Loughy will know better than I do, but I do think the transition from Shane Steichen to Brian Johnson so far has not been the best one in terms of the play calling, in terms of how they're looking. Obviously, Jalen Hurts was supposedly sick this week, but I think kind of looks not quite the outlier player. He's still getting the usage, still getting over 10 rushes per game, all of that, but he hasn't been quite as effective either. I think there's some kinks to work out, obviously, when you transition from one really good OC to a guy who we'll see who he is over the course of a year. But I don't really have a ton of faith in the pass game getting the volume. And I think, too, last week we saw A.J. Brown get really forcefully fed after having his little hissy fit on the sidelines. Now Devonta Smith, I think, could be in the bounce back spot, because to me, these guys are closer to 1A, 1B, but I think A.J. Brown views it as 1 and 2. And I think for me, like Devonta Smith, I guess, would be the flyer you go to, but price tags aren't really doing much for you. I'd rather have Swift than anybody in the pass game, I think. Me too.
I mean, AJ, look, here's the thing, Ben. Like we saw last year, I was actually at this game at that hellhole of an excuse of a stadium in FedEx Field. But Devonta Smith went nuts in that game. It was also a spot where they sacked Wentz like 8 times and the game was never competitive, right? But Devonta Smith could have a good game. The problem is, and this kind of speaks to a point that you always make, you need him to get the targets. You need him to have a big game. And then it's 7,500 or whatever he is. You need him to beat out a lot of really good wide receivers on this slate.
Huge opportunity cost. Now, he's such a good player. He can absolutely do it. There's no doubt about that. But that is the third kind of piece to the puzzle. He could have a great return in this game. And then I'm not saying it's a 1v1 because it's not. It's more complicated than that. But like if Keenan Allen has 40, if Chase has 37, like it might not matter depending on your lineup construction. So I get it. But I do think more often than not, people, when they get to that range, are looking elsewhere. And for that reason alone, this is a pseudo double-digit favorite at home. I'm going to probably try to get some shares of Smith and just hope we hit that ceiling game.
Are you thinking skinny stacks here?
Yeah, I think so. Just because if you don't, first of all, you're allocating a ton of salary. And I think that requires Washington to really push them. And I'm just not sure how often that happens.
We need a pseudo counter at the top of this screen.
Yeah, that's one game, one pseudo.
We can get a tertiary up there too. People always laugh at me because I use that to explain, the non-stars, the non-secondary. Matter of fact, I use it exactly how it should be used. But yeah, we should get that up there. With Swift, though, Spags, it's so tough for me not, like, especially looking at the pricing of some of these other guys. Is it possible? And you talked about the, change in offensive coordinator and also just the bizarre nature of this team, like Swift not touching the ball barely in week 1. And last week, that last 9-minute drive where they kept the ball out of Tampa's hands, I really think that was just keeping Swift fresh. It's not like he doesn't have a checkered injury history. He had 16 carries with like 3 or 4 minutes into the third quarter, right? Or fourth quarter. He was getting the work and he was dominant. Leads the league in yards before contact, which is great. And he's also been great after contact. He's hitting holes. At his price point, how much are you looking to get to? Instead of just like, hey, do you like this guy? More along the lines of how much Swift do you want to get to in this spot where they're pseudo double-digit favorites today?
I think for me, so the field's at about 10% ownership on Stokastic data. Looks like about 15% on some other sites out there. So it's a little bit of a chalky play to go to Swift. And there is some concern for Gainwell. Like Loughy mentioned, Gainwell did come in for Swift down the home stretch of that game, but it was one where you could see Swift looking tired of the sidelines, but also looking kind of irritated on the sidelines that he wasn't getting the work when the game was still, I guess, kind of in range, but not fully in range. It feels like they want to get Gainwell going. So I think there is some logic to not play Gainwell, but also to play less Swift as a result because of Gainwell's potential there, where if this game's out of hand, you got to assume that they don't want to put Swift into a dangerous spot for him, where they just don't want to have too heavy of a workload for him unless the game really matters for him. So I think that Swift comes with some risk. So to me, I'm getting about 5.5% in the Sims right now, which put me at about half the field of Stokastic's ownership. I feel okay about that. Swift can obviously break a big day. This run defense on the year for Washington is not good, giving up a 0.05 EPA per rush, which anytime that's a positive number in expected points added, that does mean you're giving up pretty good production to the running backs overall, giving positive production above average. So Swift can get there, but I think he's got to get there in like 3 quarters. And that just becomes tough when, the volume is the key that you're always looking for.
What about you, Ben?
I like him a little more than Spags, but I echo those concerns about it's not just about his performance. It's just about where exactly is the target situation. If Philly rolls, is Swift seeding work to Gainwell? That's not good. If Philly doesn't roll, is Swift getting there in a game that doesn't go according to plan? I worry about that. He's not, it's not like he can't give you some target share, but really, I don't have that one area where I say, okay, this guy's touchdown equity is through the roof, or the workload is so secure that I know he's going to get there. I think the price is good. I think the matchup is good. And I do have, a decent amount of Swift in my portfolio right now, about 10 to 15%. I do worry, though, that there are situations where he can't maximize his ceiling, not for anything he did, just because of how the game plays out.
All right. Favorite way to play this game for you then? Is it going to be Hurts skinny stacks, you think, and just hope that they roll through the air?
I think that's the best way in tournaments. I think Swift is still the best play just because there's not that much else that I feel secure about in this game.
Okay. Let's get into it then. Next one up. Spags, I'll toss this one over to you. We've got 12 games, so plenty of time to go here. But when we're looking at this Miami and Buffalo spot, there's so many different ways this can play out, right? By the way, Salvon Ahmed is questionable. The whole Devon Achane, they want to get him more involved. Yeah, obvious. That was the most unnews news you've ever heard, right? The the coaches are impressed with Achane coming off a 700-yard 4-touchdown game. They'd like to get him more involved, unless that's like Scott Brooks, saying he wants to get players more involved and then says they're going to and then doesn't play them, or I know you followed basketball. Remember he was like, yeah, we're giving Marcin Gortat too many minutes. And then he was just trying to actually kill the guy. He's like, I think we need to do a better job of not doing that. And then just played him 40 minutes a game. So there's coaches out there that don't know that they make the decisions, but very odd. I want to actually start with the backfield here, because now these guys aren't just cheap, right? They're coming off a 70-point explosion against the Denver Broncos defense that just gave up at halftime. And they're 2.5-point dogs against the Buffalo Bills, who admittedly are better in the past as far as defense goes. But what if this is close to a split and now you're paying these price points for Miami? Are you getting to the backfield?
So I am not right now getting any of most certain Achane or Achan. Guy gets one big game. He has to change his name pronunciation on me, which just throws me for a loop. But
isn't it funny though that it's like it took him a big game to think that he was allowed to tell people how to pronounce his name?
Yeah, more power to him. You should be able to get your name pronounced however you want. But it is funny that he's like, oh, finally, I've earned my Yankee stripes. Right. I get my name said correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard for me to have faith in the backfield. And last week too, nobody really played Achane. I think the guy who won the mini max played Achane, and that was not a wise move going into last week. This week, I kind of feel the same thing where I just want to see how this backfield shakes out. But now these guys are priced where, Mostert probably has to get you 19 to 20 touches that are really efficient for him in the pass game and in the run game. And I don't know if he's going to get those against Buffalo. This is not the cakewalk team that it was last week against Denver, who we talked about on, I think, every stream. Everybody mentioned like, yeah, Denver, Miami might shoot out. I think we thought there might be a little more production on the Denver side of things, but still definitely shot out on one side. This game against Buffalo, I know it's a really high total game. I know these are two offenses that are really good. I don't know how this shoots out. Like, this Buffalo defense is pretty good. Miami obviously is very smart, very schematically sound. They're not going to get like Tyreek running into open space quite as much, I don't think. I don't think they're going to get Mostert kind of getting these dink and dunk plays that are wide open for him. I don't think they're going to get little cute kind of pitch passes to Devin Achane that are going to work out this week. So I don't have the same level of faith, even though I do think Miami's been an incredible outlier team, but I'm not getting a lot of these guys, and I'm okay with that. Like Tyreek, you definitely want to have some of, but the field's going to be there. The field's not going to be too much on Mostert, but I think it might be higher than the ownership is projecting right now because people love chasing a chalky game. So I find it hard to get to Miami, but I'm curious because this game obviously high total and it's hard to get there. So kind of feels like you should brute force your way to it.
Ben, what about you?
Feel the same way. I'm a little worried because Miami, you know, if I zoom out, it's just like, okay, a team hangs 70, and what is my kind of next move? It's to really short them. That doesn't seem like the wisest idea, but that's where I'm at. I think this is a pretty tough spot. I think the pace could slow here, and it's really, really tough to get these guys in your lineup. Now, the ownership, I'm taking a look, not just on DraftKings, even on OwnersBox, sites like that. Nobody seems to be going to this backfield whatsoever. So if you do get to Mostert, you're going to be on an island if he goes crazy again. Even Tyreek is not getting the love you would think for a guy this dynamic. So there is an element of, do I want to just force my way in to having some of this offense? And I would like to do that, but I'm not willing to sacrifice a lot of the other spots that I want to target. So Miami is a big short for me today. I like the Bills in the game, and I'm really hoping this comes in under the total.
And not just Miami running backs, but you're saying it's
the game itself. I'm not getting to Tua on any of the sites right now, and you know, Waddle, I don't know what to. It's just very, very difficult for me to get exposure to these guys.
Yeah, the Waddle spot is actually similar to me as Devontae Smith in a little bit, yep. In a small way, because on one hand, like you're going to see more passing volume from Miami. It is a higher total, but Philly also has a really high implied total as well. So it's not like, you know, they're not expected to score points, but it's the same thing kind of with Waddle, where if you even go back to last year and look at Waddle's target share, don't get me wrong, he was awesome. But as far as like his overall production compared to target share, you would have thought that this guy had a 30% target share alongside Tyreek Hill, but he was still, you know, a distant second. So can he have a monster game, Spags? Absolutely. And I want to get your thoughts on these pass catchers. How do you prioritize a guy like Waddle in a spot today coming up? I'm not worried about coming off the concussion, but at his price point, where would you rank him among all of the other high priced receivers?
I would not rank him that highly. I think the usage, like you mentioned, has not been great for him. He's getting about 6 intended touches a game so far this year, which, you know, can be really high octane ones. He can break a touchdown on basically any play. It's what he did last year. It's how he created a lot of his value. He still looks good, you know, analytically, 0.7 EPA per target, which would be one of the highest marks in the league. For context, that'd be where Rashid Shaheed was last year over the course of an entire season. So he looks good. It's just 7,600 is really tough to pay for him when you know that Tyreek is getting schemed really well, getting put into space really well. And obviously the Bills are going to try to stop and sell out to not get Tyreek going in the same way. But I don't know if that opens up enough for Waddle to get there with the usage that goes to the run game, with the usage that goes to Tyreek. If Durham Smythe gets more involved, like there's a lot of ways that Waddle cannot get there. So the price tag being tough, I think it's a tournament play. He makes sense, but like he's not being owned, it looks like, anywhere across the industry. And I think there's pretty good logic for it because that price tag is just really steep for a guy that is probably going to lose a lot of his share at, you know, in terms of a ceiling outcome to so many different guys on that team.
What's your favorite way to attack this game then? If we're talking about the Buffalo side, you still have Stephon Diggs. James Cook worries me though, because he's not cheap and he's clearly not the goal line back. Like he's good. In between the 20s, you just have to hope this guy breaks one at this rate. Like you have to hope he breaks one because as far as goal line production goes, he's what, fourth in line behind Latavius Murray, Damian Harris, and Josh Allen?
Yeah, it doesn't look great for Cook, but I am getting a lot more of him because of the price point. Looks like about 22% of him in the exposures I pulled before the show. A little bit shy at 20% on Stephon Diggs as well. So I think I am playing more the Buffalo side of this one, I guess, on the assumption that, and again, simulation wise, obviously just following that data and trusting, that competition of 40,000 times amidst the 10,000 lineups is going to be smarter than my player takes for the most part. But I think Cook price-wise makes sense, allows you to get to a lot of players. Diggs is kind of a lever against the Keenan Allen, so it makes sense why he'd be in some amount of lineups. I think their side works a little better for the game theory of DFS, but it does feel odd to, I think, only have one side of this game, given that if Buffalo's scoring, you have to assume Miami's going to score. And but I know bringbacks also data-wise not historically as valid as it might seem in terms of how players like to hand build. So I'm okay getting Cook and Diggs. I think they're fine plays, and I guess it just feels naked to only play one side of the game.
Ben, what about with ownership though? If you're looking at the top stacks tool that we've got over on Stokastic, which we use to guide us quite often, top stack probability up top, it's the Chargers. And then from a value perspective as well, it's going to be the Chargers too, because you look at the injuries to that team outside of Herbert and Keenan Allen, and no Eckler as well. Everyone's pretty cheap there. Then you have Minnesota, and here comes Buffalo, number 3, 11.6% top stack probability. Not looking terrible as far as top value either. And this is also a team that is running the ball at one of the lower clips in football, especially in a game like this. You could see more of that. They also grade out as our third highest rated stack on the day. Are you more interested in Buffalo, or are you truly just coming in underway on this entire game?
No, I have some interest in Buffalo. The good thing about the Bills, there's a lot of different ways that you can formulate the stack. You've got Cook in that backfield. You've got Diggs. We know that Gabe Davis can do it. It's not steady by any means, but the guy's got crazy upside. You could play tight end roulette, and you've got Josh Allen. And so I'm fine trying to get some of that. It is a little dicey because realistically, if you want to run back, you're paying an extreme price for that, either in Waddle and Tyreek, and that is tricky. But when I look at it and I look at our projections, not even just, over on OwnersBox, you can play 2 quarterbacks. So naturally, Josh Allen's a lot more popular there. But even on DraftKings and whatnot, he's coming up as one of the more popular QBs, but he's not garnering any crazy ownership. And I don't think it's a given that he comes preloaded with Diggs in all those lineups. Obviously, with Diggs, he's the alpha. But you could get creative and go to Cook. You could go to Gabe Davis and be just fine with some Josh Allen stacks. So I am getting to some of him today.
If let's say you're playing one lineup and it has to have this game in some fashion, what does it look? What does your lineup look like?
So it would be probably more generic. It would be Allen, Diggs, and I think I would look to roll the dice and put in Cook and just have no run back and just have a weird stack of Buffalo with no Miami.
Okay. Just get a little different.
Yeah.
Last week we saw a Millie Maker win it with 293 points, Spags, and it was Tyreek Hill and Raheem Mostert with no Tua Tagovailoa and no run back in that game either. So definitely a weirder build, but everyone in that lineup was relatively chalky. It was really strange.
Well, he had Dalton at QB, right? Was that the weird part?
I thought it was it.
I think it was a Dalton double or single. It was Dalton and Thielen, I believe. But that was his lever to get different, was playing all the chalk and then playing an outlier stack against the bad Seattle D, I think was what got him there.
I didn't think it was Dalton. I thought it was, I'll tell you right now, it was the guy that chopped with first, right? He had Jared Goff at cap.
Oh, was it Goff? Okay. Yeah, so that's there. I must be thinking of the afternoon slate. But yeah, no, I think that sort of speaks to it too, where you can take some chalky pieces. We'll talk about Keenan Allen a little bit. I think he's a chalky piece. Maybe you don't play him with Herbert. I think there's certainly some logic to it, but I'm with Ben. I think, you could take Cook and Diggs, and I think maybe pair him with Allen if you want, but I don't think you have to. But definitely the Buffalo side looks fairly appealing. And I think Miami too, for what it's worth. I know people in the chat, of course, people always think we're trying to put people on the wrong plays. It's like, no, the game theory play is to go to the Buffalo side because of how people will flock to Miami. And I think that there are some merits too to go into Buffalo side, to go to Cook. Miami on the year, one of the worst run defenses on the league, 0.11 EPA per rush, only stuff in the run 11% of the time. That's also a low mark. And then Diggs, we just know Diggs can go off. And again, same price tag roughly as Keenan Allen. So I think there's real logic to go to Buffalo. It just feels weird, like Ben mentioned. And like I've said, it just feels weird to not play Miami as a bring back, but I think it's entirely possible that just 2 guys get here and no bring back.
For sure. Ben, Neil brought up a word that I had never heard, but combinatorial ownership that he used the other. Apparently, this is one of the new words, new terms sweeping the industry. That
it's huge in best ball because it's all about the unique combos in best ball.
Yeah. For sure. I just generally seem to be late on these terms. I prefer to create my own nonsense. Not to say that this is nonsensical. It's actually what Ben has talked about forever, just, using normal people words. What it means, Ben, is it's like not worrying about individual ownership and more so focusing on like combo ownerships or stack ownership and stuff that's not going to be as popular. Like we talked about with the Millie Maker lineup, like the way that you talk about always building lineups where you're not too worried about getting a 0.5% guy, but more so building the lineup itself that looks different than the rest of the field.
What is the word?
Combinatorial.
Okay. Yeah, we're going. That's stuff put together is more my speed, like combining stuff. But yeah, I agree with that premise. I don't agree with that word. That's very complicated.
Let's talk about Minnesota. And I knew you'd love that. I bet Spags is a big combinatorial user.
I love combinatorial. I think, honestly, I think my podcast partner, Pete Overzet, might have been the first to really start doing that. Now the trickle down has gotten everywhere. So I'll give him the blame / credit, I guess. But it is a big word that feels like you're trying to sound smart about, just like, yeah, two guys ownership combined.
Yeah, like you need glasses if you want to use that. Ben could do
I have glasses and I'm still not using that.
Just swirling some brandy and going, combinatorial.
That's exactly right. We're going to get you set up for that next week, Ben. But all right, Minnesota and Carolina. Some of these games will cruise through, guys, but that one definitely takes a lot of time. Minnesota and Carolina. Before we do, OwnersBox is 30% filled right now with, what do we have, 2.5 hours before lock? 30% filled, $35K to first, $175,000 prize pool, $15 entry. Shit, even if you're playing 2 entries in that, I feel very confident at this point saying, Ben, that it's going to overlay. Like I have, sometimes you have to be careful because things can fill quick late. At 29%, 4,100 out of 13,875. I feel very confident saying that this is going to overlay today.
No doubt. And I feel very confident saying that if you're going dollar to dollar, your best dollars that you're playing are over there, just because when you have a field with dead entries, it's not, again, it doesn't mean I'm not playing for the millie, because I am, no doubt about it, but I definitely making time to put some lineups in there. And we're going to talk about that because I love the super flex. I'm a college football DFS. You get super flex. The ability to play 2 quarterbacks and have some fun with that lineup construction is just a really fun way to play on top of everything else that they got over there.
Don't bury the lead, though. If you get in before 11:15 using the link in the description or in chat, you're getting all of our NFL tools entirely free for the whole week. First of all, OwnersBox has $500 first match deposit bonus. You only need to deposit 10 if you're looking to get in on this to get all of our tools for the first week, for an entire week, right? But in the event that you decide you actually want to take advantage of that bonus and you go, all right, well, I could play 2 lineups of $15, but why with this overlay would I not want to go in? And Josh mentioned, Josh has maxed this every single week. He was talking about it before we started this show. The bonus, the super flex, which is awesome. You need not play anyone at defense. You could super flex in quarterbacks. Huge overlay right now. I mean, massive overlay right now. 29%, $35K up top. And since you're getting all of our tools, right? We'll email you. Actually, I would do, honestly, if you do it, if you click the link, sign up. I would just email us, be like, oh, I'm trying to get the tools by today. That's the way I would make this because if you email us right after you do it, you deposit, sign up, using the link, they'll set you up. Our customer service team has been awesome with that. But our NFL Sims tool, lineup simulator that you hear us talk about all the time, you can use it for OwnersBox, our player projections, ownership projections, top stack tool, all of that. We've got OwnersBox in it. Of course, DraftKings and FanDuel as well. All of our showdown tools, every single tool that we have on the site. There's no add-ons. It's not like, oh, you get a free week, but you need an add-on. No add-ons. All of our NFL tools right here. When you sign up at OwnersBox, deposit a minimum of 10. Of course, like I said, max that bonus if you have the means, especially given that come in and get some in this massive overlay contest, 35K up top. But no better contest out there and no better way to try all of our tools for free. You'd be getting the main slate, afternoon slate, showdown slate tonight, tomorrow night slate. You're getting Thursday night football. And then you have all the tools updated for next Sunday as well. Can't beat it. Check it out. Link in the description and chat. Go ahead over there, play on OwnersBox, get our tools for free for the week. And when you hit those wins, send us the screenshots. It's the Stokastic Hall of Fame. All right, let's go. Spags, next up, Minnesota, 4.5-point favorites against Carolina. Sanders expected to play on the one side. Mingo questionable with a concussion, but we'll start it off with Minnesota. They're 0-3, 2 0-3 teams. Justin Jefferson is not exactly cheap. Alexander Mattison somewhat got there on volume. Didn't kill you last week, despite, a few more bad plays. And then you've just got the TJ Hawkinson, which is probably the only good tight end play now that Debo's in. So Kittle doesn't look as good. How are you paying for these Minnesota players today? And how are you playing this Minnesota game?
I think it's worth going back to Madison a little bit again here. Not a tough matchup against Carolina. Basically net neutral average against the run with a 0 EPA. So that's a matchup that I think you can target for Madison, whose workload's been pretty solid. Apparently they might get Cam Akers in the mix a little bit more this week, which obviously comes with some risk given how poorly Madison's been running to start the year. But the usage has been there for him, just shy of 19 to 10 touches a game. I think Madison is still worth a play here. But I think, there's enough values out there. Pittsburgh, we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a little bit, that I think also, so Minnesota is an important part because basically you're getting to play a guy like Justin Jefferson by playing, let's say, a Pat Freiermuth or Calvin Austin in that Pittsburgh game. But the lever, I think, against Freiermuth and against all the cheap tight ends, as Loughy mentioned, TJ Hawkinson is a really nice matchup on paper for him. One of the best tight end matchups in the league is going against Carolina. So far this year, 0.74 EPA allowed to tight ends. We've seen Hawkinson have slate breaking upside in the past. So I think Hawkinson is the one that I'm not getting a lot of sim-wise, but actually might try to override the sims a little bit more on, because I think he's the one player here that feels singularly unique in terms of the game theory of the slate of trying to beat all these value tight ends are going to be trotted out there. So I think he's worth it. Madison and Jefferson, I kind of think are just okay plays at their salaries. And Jefferson in particular, it's so hard to pay 10K for a receiver where the volume is still not guaranteed. And we know the guys who they can go to get direct leverage on Jefferson. So this game, I think, tough to really feel confident about. But I guess if I'm going to be most confident about a piece, it's probably Hawkinson and then Madison number 2.
Eric Lindquist and I, who do the matchup show together, Spags, had a side bet that I said I thought Hawkinson would be under 10% owned because there's just so many good high-priced options elsewhere from a stacking perspective at wide receiver, expensive quarterbacks and high-scoring games. He said he's confident he's going to be over 10% today. We currently have him projected well under 10% in large field tournaments. Where do you think he comes in? Because to your point, and this was kind of what I was saying to him, and we had an agreement that he was good play, but a disagreement for why he was. My thinking was, I just feel like a lot of people aren't going to want to get to Hawkinson, even though he's far and away the best tight end on the slate. It's just paying that premium at the position when everybody else is cheaper is something that I think a lot of people won't want to do.
Yeah, we've seen it work out recently where Travis Kelce had the big enough game, and that sort of put him where, like, I think it was Sam Laporta was one he was really competing against, but I believe a Kelce lineup was the one that ended up winning the money. So sometimes just having the high upside, high dollar tight end can be a way to get yourself off the beaten path on a week where everybody's playing value. And I do think tight end this week, that's because of how it works. Everybody's playing value, but I haven't seen Hawkinson projected for over 5% anywhere across the industry. So I don't think he's going to be that chalky of a play unless there's just something that every, ownership algorithm out there is missing. So I'm with you, Loughy. I think that Hawkinson is a really nice lever. The fact that, he doesn't project so well as a value means that he's not getting there in the optimizers too. So like he makes game theory sense. He makes kind of the analytics sense with the matchup there and the EPA numbers. Like he checks all the boxes, I think, for being a lever play because everybody wants to afford the high price receivers or McCaffrey. And if that's the case, you could just have a lineup of all $6,500 guys and you'll probably be just completely off the beaten path of what the field's doing.
Holy shit, boys. DTR is starting for the Browns.
I know. I was trying to sneak in some more Ravens exposure, but I could not get it.
Wow.
In the betting markets, obviously. Yeah. DTR is good, though. I know we'll get there, but.
What happened to Deshaun?
What's that?
What happens to Deshaun? I missed that.
Well, he didn't throw all week. And then they said he was going to play. However, it appears that he's not. That's crazy. Getting thrust into action against the Baltimore Ravens. Huh? That's going to change some things up. We'll get to that game in a little bit. What are you going to say, Ben?
No, yeah, we'll get there. This is just peak everything. Like I have good Ravens tickets, potentially, but
so now the Browns are crushing.
Oh, the Browns are definitely crushing. There's no doubt.
Also, reports that I'm seeing that Ezekiel Elliott is expected to get quote starter reps unquote in week 4. Those third round Ramondre shares don't look too good, do they now?
I thought it was going to be Kevin Harris or Pierre Strong that pushed him for something, but it is hilarious that it's just Zeke going out there being he's the new Tony Pollard. That's Ramondre, but not as good.
Wow. All right. Well, we'll get to all those games, guys, but I figured if you're building lineups while you're watching this show, might be helpful to see that type of news coming in, because that is very significant to say the least. Ben, what are you doing with the Vikings?
So they're similar in, I don't want to say they're the same as Miami. It's not that I don't like Justin Jefferson. I would love to play him. Just don't have a lot of room to get there. I think that Hockenson is very interesting because I agree that he won't be overly popular. And I equate that to what we talked about with the Eagles defense. It's more of a luxury spend. If you're building and you're paying down at multiple skill positions, you might have that money to go get Hockenson. And as Spags alluded to, a great matchup with Carolina. But I think for most people, what they're saying is, oh, let me go get, Chase and Adams and Keenan Allen. And then, okay, I'll save at tight end. I'll save at defense. I think that's more of a traditional build. For that very reason, Hockenson will probably be under-owned. So I'm getting to some of this. I have some Madison. I don't really have Cousins, though. And with that, it kind of limits how much Vikings exposure I'm getting.
You are getting some Madison again?
Yeah, why not? I've done worse things than that.
Do you worry about Akers at all?
I do.
I only ask because I know Akers wasn't good either, running behind that Rams line, and he just isn't particularly good. But Madison hasn't been good either.
No. I look at it kind of in the theory of, if Madison plays terrible, he might cede work to Akers. If he plays terrible, it doesn't matter because he played terrible and it's going to be a problem. If he's playing great, it would seem unlikely that they're like, wow, this guy's finally getting it together. He's not fumbling. Why don't we cede work now? It seems like he'll still have his opportunities. And if he's playing great, no problems. And if it's bad, it'll get even worse than normal.
Okay. Jaguars up 17-0 on the Falcons. Yeah. Is anyone shocked by this? I don't know. If the moment this team goes down even a little bit and you rely on Desmond Ridder to throw the football competently, he's 6 for 10, 53 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Not great. Not great. Does Bijan Robinson end up having a disappointing season, Spags, because of how bad this team could be offensively if they go behind against decent offenses?
They're definitely a front runner team in a way that's worrisome. I don't think he's going to have a bad year because they'll still have some games where they keep it in pocket. But yeah, if that defense runs poorly to start, it's just they can't dig out. They don't throw efficiently to Pitts. They don't throw enough to London or efficiently to London. It's a really ugly situation for Bijan to be involved. And he still has Tyler Algier breathing down his neck, getting almost 15 touches a game. So it's a tough configuration for him, but he's so talented that I still wouldn't write him off.
Mark D, what's the promo code for OwnersBox? Yes, my fault. If you use the link, you're trying to get the free week, you're trying to hit that overlay over there, use the link. It'll ask for a promo code. You don't need don't use a promo code. Just use the link. It'll ask, you don't need it. The link is all you need. Thank you. I meant to mention that earlier. Been getting a lot of DMs about that lately. Ben, Carolina, Miles Sanders is going to play. I've been underweight on Sanders a lot this season because he's getting ownership. We've got him right now coming in on the ownership tool at 11%. So up there with a lot of other similarly priced running backs, right? Rashad White, Swift, within like $600-700 of each other. James Cook, Joe Mixon, all these guys, Madison between like 10 and 11%. Is Sanders a guy dealing with a bit of a nagging injury that we've seen kind of hamstring him in the past? Is he a guy you're getting to this week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned, just in the sense that it's the type of injury that, you know, groin, a hamstring, that's not ideal. Hubbard's behind him, who can do a lot of the same things. He certainly can seed work in the passing game. And I don't really know what to make of the quarterback situation in Carolina. I'm not sure that it's good or bad. I think there are positives and negatives to both Young or Dalton for a guy like Miles Sanders. Now, if he loses his explosiveness, you're in big trouble, because he's someone that I always rate more, not on a volume, but he can get there just on any given touch, can be a gigantic slate making type of opportunity. So I'm a little skeptical. I will say, looking at the Sims and some of the metrics, they do like him, and for that reason I do have some exposure, but I'm far from confident rolling him out there, just because I think there's a lot of unknowns that we're just going to have to see when the games lock at this point.
The Vikings defense stinks, Spags, but at the same time, you do still kind of have to have a competent passing game to really beat the Vikings, right? Like, I'm not saying you can't put up yards on them, but you look at the teams that had a lot of success against them, the Eagles, because the Vikings didn't want to give that long ball up, even though they did to Devonta Smith, but the Eagles just ran it down their throats because they were playing so heavily to prevent that long ball. And then last week, Justin Herbert and them lit him up through the air. But from a rushing perspective, they had nothing going on the ground against them. Joshua Kelly was absent from that game entirely. So do you think this is a good spot for Miles Sanders, or one that you're not getting too much of? And what are you doing with the Carolina Panthers as a whole?
So I am getting a little bit more than the field of Miles Sanders right now. It looks like Stokastic has him at about 10%, around the industry about 10% as well. I think I'm going to get about 15%, which I don't mind. Just the workload's been huge for him. Every week he's getting about 20 touches. Like, I don't think you can really argue that. But the matchup, I agree. I hate Bryce Young. I really have not enjoyed watching Bryce Young play. I thought he would be kind of a very good system QB from the jump with what he did at Bama, and he just looks too small. He looks very timid out there. When he does have open windows, he's like kind of scrambling around and not even running the ball, just like scrambling around in the pocket and scrambling outside and just not creating value with those plays. And I do think he is a step backwards from Andy Dalton, at least with how these guys are right now, where Dalton at least is a quarterback that can get the ball out on time, can stand there, can take hits. Bryce does not seem to want to do that. And if he does, he's taking these really big hits from behind that are just like surprises to him, that he's almost fumbling the ball on every time. So I will have Panthers. I feel awful about it, though. I just do not have a lot of faith in Bryce in this situation. But like Loughy mentioned, Minnesota's defense is bad enough that if Bryce can be an average QB, then I think the spot looks okay. But I think it's really kind of a hold your nose play for guys like Thielen with the price tag on the way up. Thielen getting a lot of workload. The targets have been there for him with about 8.3 intended touches per game. So that looks good. But if Bryce just gets gobbled up, like, Thielen's not going to get anything going. And the only thing Thielen has going for him, Loughy, it's a revenge game. And we all know the chat loves good revenge game.
I like Thielen a lot more last week than I do this week. That's what I will tell you. A lot more last week. Dalton's just that type of guy that locks on to players. Like, you know what I mean? He's done it his whole career. Find the guy that he likes, just target him 40 times a game. And why would Thielen not be that guy? Shark got some looks too. We'll see if Mingo plays or not. I think Thielen's fine. He's fine. I'm not as high on Carolina as it appears the field is right now, Ben.
Yeah, I'm not super high on them either. I think you do have reasonable options at these price points. And Thielen is in that conversation, there's no doubt. But I don't have a lot else to say about this team. It's a weird spot. I think in the betting markets, it's a pretty efficient line. It's just not a team. Maybe a share here of Sanders or Thielen, but that's the extent for me.
For what it's worth, if Dalton was in today, I would love this passing offense. I know that sounds nuts, but Spags, to your point, I do think having Dalton in there would have made a considerable difference just from this team's passing attack.
Yeah, Bryce is just not ready for prime time, and like that's okay. Like, I think Panthers fans get really defensive of him if you mention that he's not playing well. He is currently one of the worst QBs in the league. I don't think that's going to hold up forever, but I don't think the coaching is doing him any favors either. Andy Dalton, for whatever he's worth, is a replacement level player, and sometimes that can be enough to matter in a game like this against a team like Minnesota that just is willing to give up production to anybody that's replacement level.
For sure. And to be fair, like last year, Dalton, you're in as what Ben likes to call a bizarro freak show offense in New Orleans, where you weren't really given a ton of opportunities to shine there, especially when it came to touchdown equity for a team like that, where it was Taysom Hill coming in and a million different variations of a strange offense, right? Like with this, we saw last week, Dalton threw the ball, 58 times? So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I will say this much, fellas, when you're looking at Cincinnati and Tennessee, maybe I'm just dumb. Wouldn't be the first time I've been referred to as that. Ben, I don't even think that I'm that high on going heavy Cincinnati stacks, but just the thought of getting, more Jamar Chase in the field at his price point to me, maybe even some Higgins. Let's see, Jamar Chase right now, projected ownership, 14%, but he's 7,800. He's a lot cheaper than some of these other high-priced receivers, specifically your Justin Jeffersons. T. Higgins, coming off a rough game, but the week before that, he blew up. He's at 5.6%. It is a pass funnel defense in Tennessee. Understandably, Joe Burrow does not look right. I mean, the fact that, some of those 3rd and longs, he was throwing two yards downfield, or like basically in the flat. I don't love that at all. But I think we would be remiss to not mention that even in a game where Joe Burrow didn't look 100%, Jamar Chase still went nuts. So I still think there's something there. Maybe I'm on the wrong side of this. I'm willing to be, but I still think some of these pass catching options for Carolina or Cincinnati, specifically because this is one of the most concentrated passing offenses in the league, is a place that I don't mind getting over the field on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. In some ways, I'm not going to make a case that it's a good thing for Chase, but the one benefit, it seemed like they said, okay, you know what we have to do? Let's just get him the ball, lower the A-dot and just get him the ball. Little screens, move him around the formations, and the PPR points were obscene in that last game. It wasn't, Jamar Chase 60 yards down the field making crazy catches. It was get the ball in his hands and let him rip off 10, 12, 14-yard gains. That adds up quickly. I think by far the riskier play, but it also could be a very against the grain, would be T. Higgins, who was just terrible in that game. He just did not have it going on. But these are guys, I'm not going to say Brown and Smith 1A, 1B, but T. Higgins still has 28 targets in 3 games. He's certainly a red zone threat. I don't think it's inconceivable that he has the bounce back game at a cheaper tag and what I would say would be lost ownership.
Yeah. What did I say? 5.6% ownership right now or something?
There's so many other guys that I think are on people's minds, mine included. T. Higgins is kind of an afterthought on the slate. And that's interesting.
Spags, how are you approaching this Bengals team today? Any similar or differing thoughts here against Tennessee?
I think the same page. I like the matchup on paper, and I do think because Tennessee hasn't gotten straight for the last few weeks that people might have forgotten how they are one of the worst downfield defending teams in the league in terms of just giving up the big opportunities over and over again. They give up deep shots about 8% of the time, which is a very high rate. Getting up a 0.7 EPA on those plays, which is not a good mark. And overall, 0.11 EPA per drop back, 0.13 EPA per pass. So these are metrics that you normally want to lean into and attack. The worry for me is Chase's ownership. He does project for a good amount of ownership here. And I do think, like Ben mentioned, I think Higgins is definitely a gross play, but he's getting, about 2 targets less than Higgins, than Chase. He's at 9.3 intended touches per game for Higgins, 11 for Chase. All it takes is just Higgins to not drop every ball and not be as bad as he's been to start the year. And I think Higgins is great. The contract thing seems to maybe mess them a little bit more. He's not getting extended before the year, but he's going to have good games just if he keeps up this volume. So I want to go to this one, but I got to say the data's not pushing me there as much as I would like to see. So maybe another letdown spot for Cincinnati. I don't know, but I want to be at least close to the field on these guys with double stacks and maybe QBs +3 as well.
Someone mentioned it in chat, Ben, and I can't believe over all the years I've never asked you, what is that little candy thing you have up there behind you?
What that?
Yeah.
That's from Seinfeld. It's got the Junior Mint, Bosco, Pez dispenser. If you know Seinfeld.
Never a big fan, believe it or not.
You got to get on Seinfeld.
Love Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, of course.
Never huge on Seinfeld.
Seinfeld's great. The best. Okay.
Are those real? Are they preserved?
They're real and they're spectacular.
Wait, are they actually real?
What?
Behind you.
That's just a picture.
Yeah, it's just a picture.
Oh, it almost looks like there was some depth to it. Like they
What do you
were
think? I'm in
there.
the Sphere in Vegas? No, it's just.
Yo,
Just
did you
keeping
see
rotting
that?
food behind your head.
Yeah.
I asked him if it was preserved. That Sphere is ridiculous. Did you see that, Spags?
Wait,
They
what?
just the Sphere in Vegas. They just opened
Oh,
it.
yeah.
By God, is that something else?
That's Vegas for you. Build a monolith that's completely useless just for ads, basically. Like, I got to respect the game. The hustle in Vegas is strong as ever.
And they say in America we don't build anything anymore. I'll point them to the Sphere next time we talk.
With a gigantic testicle with ads on it. Go America, go.
Hey, get out of here, dude. Don't. All right. The other side of this. Oh, Mixon. What are you guys doing with Mixon today? This is not a particularly easy matchup, Spags.
He looks okay to me. I'm getting about 8% of him, which I think is right. I'm just getting guys, I think, in this low 6K range to mid 5K range, which is always, I think, where you do normally want to attack running back for the most part, especially on a big McCaffrey slate. I don't mind Mixon. Travion Williams is involved enough that Mixon is going to lose some of that pass game opportunity overall, which is where we've seen him have the big days. Of course, last year, I think it was against Carolina where he had that monster outlier day as a pass catcher. If Travion Williams is out there catching passes, that's going to cut the upside a little bit. But the goal line work is still good. 2.7 intended red zone touches per game. He can get there. He's not like a fun play, but if you're with the field with him, which I think will be a little bit under, I think that seems about right to me.
Ben, are you getting the Mixon? I know this is a guy that you like to get on when he's below the field, just based on usage, but he's getting around 10%.
Yeah, I'm a little over, nothing crazy. I think that they're content, and maybe with Burrow limited even more, just get him the ball. It's never glamorous, it's never efficient, but you tell me he flirts with 20 plus touches, couple targets, and we call it a day. I'm fine with Mixon.
Do you guys like the Titans? Ben, I'll go to you. No Treylon Burks today, so this, this already beleaguered passing offense looks even, not to say that he was buoying them by any stretch of the imagination. Tannehill threw for 13 yards last game in the second half, so not good. Landis, we will get to Watson. If you look at the sidebar there, we got you covered, brother. Coming up right after this, Baltimore, Cleveland, and then live before lock, taking you all the way up to lock. They'll hit on any other implications once that injury report comes out. But like DeAndre Hopkins still has a massive target share. It's just, can Tannehill competently get him the ball? And what are you doing with Derrick Henry this week?
Don't really love the Titans. I'm kind of hunting the team as a whole. I have a YOLO share or two of guys like Derrick Henry, of your boy at tight end, Chig, just because I think, for price point, you could play him. In the Sims, we're getting to him a little bit. It's about it. I don't have Tannehill. I don't like the team. I think it's pretty ugly.
Sad state of affairs right now for old Chigakonkwo. The whole team, man. Spags, is Derrick Henry one of these? We're going to talk about Josh Jacobs too, coming fresh off 2 weeks ago, a negative rushing game. We'll get to him. But what about Derrick Henry, who was, completely stuffed last game, played very few snaps. They're only 2.5-point dogs at home against the Cincinnati team. I don't think it's fair to say that they're a run funnel defense. I don't think that run defense is as bad as it looked through the first 2 weeks, but it would probably be the place that they would like to attack them if possible.
Yeah, the run D I think is pretty mid. I don't mind attacking there. 0.02 EPA per rush, 12% stuffed run rate. So we're talking towards the lower end of things. And they're also not great against play action. So that could be something that opens things up a little bit more if you do use Henry to set that up. The issue is, I think, so what it comes down to, and I think this is kind of tough because I'm not really playing either side of this equation meaningfully. If Cincinnati puts up a lot of points, like Derrick Henry's dead because he's not going to get the work that he needs to get in the pass game. We do have Tyjae there getting enough work per game still that could hurt him enough that Derrick Henry needs basically 25 touches a game where he's not going to get there. And this year he's about under 20. So it's hard to project him to be there. But basically, if Cincinnati's running hot, Henry doesn't get the ball. If they are running poorly, then Henry gets the ball probably a lot. But I am not getting there at all. Henry to me is not popped up sim-wise at all, not popped up data-wise very much for me. So maybe that means this is a week to play him where he's projected for under 5% ownership. Nobody's going to be there. I think there's game theory logic and going his way if you don't play any Bengals, because again, the Bengals don't get there offensively if Henry's just getting touch after touch into the fourth quarter. But to me, it looks like more of a Hopkins spot, more of a Chig spot in terms of where the projections are pushing. So I guess I'll have some of those guys, but don't love either. I get the logic for Chig. He's a lever against Pat Freiermuth potentially being a chalk play. but it's just that Tennessee is so bad. And I don't think they'd be better starting Malik Willis or Will Levis. I just think they kind of shouldn't exist. That's how I feel about Tennessee right now.
You know what? Here's how I see it. And it's similar to what you were saying. Then we'll talk Baltimore and Cleveland. I can't imagine that's going to take too long. 38.5 point total, bunch of injuries, Deshaun Watson out. Here's how I see it. Derrick Henry has not been particularly good this year. He hasn't been efficient. They've also faced a couple of tough matchups, right? Like I don't think we should ignore that either. He's faced some teams that are pretty good at stopping the run. Like I have a lot of respect for that Saints defense in week 1. He faced the Chargers, but he did have 25 carries, wasn't great. And then Cleveland's defense right now might be the best in the league. Here's all I'll say. If you guys are making decisions on your own, which you should be, maybe we can help guide you, but you're building your own lineups. I think Henry is still, given that we don't know if Joe Burrow comes back, and maybe he looks just as rough as he has in these previous weeks. If that is the case with Tennessee at home, I think Henry's still live for the 30 carry game. If the game script approaches, if the game script plays right, he had 25 carries in week 2 and they won. Like that's what I still believe, Ben, that is what they want to do. Is it what they can do in all of these games? Certainly not last week, but I think it's still what they want to do is run the football as much as humanly possible and limit Ryan Tannehill to like 25 passing attempts.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think, ironically, we're kind of splitting hairs here, but they've been adamant that's not what they want to do in terms of running Henry into the ground, but they have to. I thought we saw that after week 1. They're like, let's preserve him, or maybe we can win some football games and we got to give him 30 touches. If that's what has to be done, they're going to have to do it. And it feels like this is another game. You're a 2.5 point home dog. It's either run him and run him all the time or probably lose the game.
Yeah, you get your dicks kicked in every time this guy has 10
Well, they don't want to do that.
So.
That doesn't sound good. So you're going to have to run him a lot.
Nobody wants to have their dick kicked in. Not on television. All right. Let's talk about Cincinnati and Baltimore and Cleveland. By the way, guys, appreciate it. We're well over 500 likes here. Almost 3,000 people hanging out with us on a Sunday morning. If you haven't done so yet, take a single second, atone for your sins. It only takes 1 second. That's it. Maybe less if you're quick. Maybe less if you've been in the crypto game for a while and you got to match the triangle up with the blank space. Beat out 96% of users. You know what I'm talking about.
Of course I know. All too well, sadly.
Yeah, I wish I never learned that.
Yeah, I wish I said I genuinely don't know what you're talking about. My life would be a lot simpler.
Yeah, appreciate all you guys, though, that support this show. It does certainly go a long way for us, even though subscribing, hitting the thumbs up and all of that. Baltimore Spags, the 2.5 point. Actually, let me see what the line is now that Watson is out, because this was 2.5 points when I made this earlier. They're now 2-point favorites. Okay. So as expected, 38.5 point total. No Odell Beckham, no Rashad Bateman, but a very difficult matchup without question. Do you look towards the backfield here? Do you look towards Zay Flowers, who has been the leading target getter? Mark Andrews. What are you doing with the Baltimore offense today?
So I was not getting a lot of these guys, and I'm trying to rerun the Sims here during the show to see if things move around for me, though I'm not getting Dorian Thompson-Robinson yet, which kind of bums me out. But I think Baltimore, the spot hasn't gotten better from them from the process of this. Like, I guess you could say they'll get more time holding the ball potentially if DTR is not as good as Deshaun, though, with how bad Deshaun's been. It's possible that DTR is kind of a lateral move. But I don't foresee forcing my way to much Baltimore unless there's something really weird sim-wise that comes up. I'm still not getting any Lamar on the Sims in this most recent run I ran with the updates for DTR. So I don't think the Ravens look like a good spot. I don't think they're worth attacking. Cleveland has looked like a shutdown team, stuffing the run at a high rate, 36% stuffed run rate, getting pressured at 32% rate, blitzing at a 32% rate. So basically, every time they're blitzing, they're creating pressure off of that. They're also limiting QB runs. They're also limiting red zone runs and passes. I don't think that I want to go to this game very much on either side. And I'm curious if you guys do, because I might be missing something, but just nothing looks good besides, I guess, maybe some target concentration for Zay Flowers without Bateman and Odell out there. But even that doesn't feel like enough projection wise.
I'll tell you what, Ben, I want to disagree with Spags just on the principle of like, hey, they have 2 starting pass catchers out. We have to see concentrated targets, but I don't really disagree. We got 12 games to talk about, 11 other games. And this is kind of one where I think it's tough to get to Baltimore. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I agree. I still think always when you have someone that possesses a 100-yard bonus on the ground, there's always a conversation to be had with Lamar. And it's still very difficult to know if he surpasses 100 yards on the ground, is naked Lamar what you want, as opposed to linking him up with Andrews or trying to go to Aguilar or something like that. So it's not a team that I'm looking to get to. It's still Lamar, and I still believe in it, but I have just as much Cleveland defense as I do Lamar today, just to kind of speak to both sides of this game.
What about the Cleveland offense, where you're talking Jerome Ford, David Njoku might play if he can get his helmet on? I mean, that was the oddest report. Did you guys see that report last night?
I did not.
No? Okay.
Yeah,
so
he burned himself, apparently.
Fell into a pit fire or a fire pit or whatever it was. I think it was like something like that. And it's like the only thing I could think of was Breaking Bad, like Gustavo Fring when he walks out after
his face is melted off.
Yeah. And they go, David Njoku intends on playing if he can get his helmet on. You would think that a prerequisite for not playing would be, I might not be able to get my helmet on tomorrow.
If you catch on fire at any point 24 hours before a game, 48 hours, I think you should just be out. That should be like concussion protocol, the on fire protocol. If you got set on fire at any point, just call it a week.
You would think so. I mean, shout out to him, I guess. I don't know. But Amari Cooper looked great last week. He would have had an even bigger game had they not had that heinous call by the ref on the sideline saying that Amari stepped out of bounds, which he never did. Do you like Amari this week? Are you going to any Njoku? Are you going to the backfield? Obviously, Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting this game, not Deshaun Watson. So a guy who hadn't thrown all week but was expected to play. Now you're getting not Deshaun Watson, and you're getting DTR looked awesome in the preseason. He can run, but I mean, this is real regular season football now.
Yeah, I think this spot's pretty tough to trust DTR to come through on. I mean, the Ravens D is not the Ravens D of the past, but still one that I think is functional enough. They're pretty much net positive for the defense in terms of how they're performing at everything. Negative EPAs at every possible situation, per drop back, per pass, per rush. So I don't think this is a greatest debut spot for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I suppose that Cooper could still get there, but it feels I just don't think projections are looking that great for DTR yet. He didn't pop up at all in the Sims, and I'm getting Aiden O'Connell in the Sims. So I think if you're getting Aiden O'Connell and not DTR, probably not the greatest reflection. But I think the lack of Deshaun makes us to stay away, even though, again, it feels like it shouldn't be because Watson's been he's been awful. He literally threw a pass backwards last week because he was just like spinning around and didn't know where he was. Like he could not be playing worse than he is playing so far. But I still think DTR is probably a step backwards because he's just not going to have the same amount of control that Deshaun has in this offense.
Holy shit. Someone mentioned David Njoku's walk-in outfit, and I just looked it up. I sent it to Jordan so he can put it on the screen. That is insane. You know, that is just did you see that?
I can't wait to see this.
Jordan, are you throwing it up there?
I'm picturing like a fireman's outfit.
He's wearing?
This is out of control.
Oh.
What? Immediately love this guy.
Those pecs didn't get burnt, so he's got that going for him.
I know, it's just jacked. That is nuts. Imagine just seeing someone like that in a parking garage as you're going to your car.
Huh?
Ben, you like that, huh? That's just
yeah. No, I'm all about the hollow man look. That's fine. I hope if he scores today, he incorporates some type of like flamethrower or fire extinguisher. Come on.
Or just like, never mind.
Yeah, here we go.
Never mind. All right. Let's talk about actually, Ben, did you have anything else on Cleveland you wanted to hit on?
No, I mean, look, DTR, I think DTR is actually a good player in life. I'm just not sure their goal is going to be for him to not lose the game and to lean on that defense. And that doesn't make it great. So outside of if you're playing a lot of the lineups and you want to YOLO a couple, I don't see the need to get there much.
One more time for you guys too. You want to get all of our tools for the entire week free. OwnersBox 31% filled right now. You get in there, you sign the link, sign up before 11:15. You still got time. We'll get you all of the tools, everything for today's slate and the remainder of the week. Also, one other thing I wanted to throw at you guys before I get to the super chat from Goody and we hit on Pittsburgh and Houston. So maybe you're not like Ben, and maybe you don't bet on every single sport in the world all the time. Teams that I've never heard of and will never hear of again. But in the event that you just like free money and you're in one of these 6 states, at Bet365, you're getting $365 for betting $1. It's the best promo in the world. As I always say, I don't stay apprised of like betting promos in, Botswana, but I can tell you that in America, you're not going to find a better promo than get $365 for $1. You deposit $10, okay? I bet 365. Link in the description and chat if you're trying to get this. Bet 10. Use $1 of that, okay? $1 of that. 10% of your $10. Put it on whatever. My recommendation, make like a 20-leg parlay because it's $1. Just go crazy. If you win, you get paid out. You get $365 in bet credits. If you lose, it doesn't matter. You lost $1. You still got your 9 from the 10 you deposited, and you've got $365. You won't find a better offer than this ever. Even if you don't love sports betting, it doesn't matter. If you're in Virginia, if you're in Colorado, New Jersey, Ohio, Kentucky, or Iowa, any of those 6 lucky states, you're getting $365 for $1. I mean, don't be a bonehead, man. You take free money whenever you can get it. There's no better way to do it than this. Link in the description and in the chat. So check it out. 365. Bet365 doing things big. They brought this back. They usually get rid of it. So I'm not sure how long it'll be around. Collector 365 by betting $1 and hopefully smash a parlay as well. That'd be pretty sweet. You use the link, you're in. You got it. Any of those 6 states. Colorado, Virginia, New Jersey, Ohio, Kentucky, and Iowa. Those are the 6, baby. All right.
Wait, could I take umbrage on behalf of the people of Botswana that we refer to?
I saw you had a visceral reaction to that.
Us fans of Botswana, we call it Betswana, is what we.
I know. Why you gotta hate on Botswana, Loughy?
You were holding on to that one until
I was right. I needed to get it out. It was killing me.
I didn't saw have you Botswana. Laugh when I said it, but then I saw the light bulb go off for you as well.
It gave me a lot of time to really workshop where I wanted to go with it as you were getting through all the legal stuff.
A lot of questions about Botswana in the chat.
What's that?
A lot of questions now about Botswana in the chat.
What questions?
Botswana parlays, Botswana markets are fire. Can you legally bet in Botswana? We've created a whole new angle.
I can tell you one thing. I bet Ben knows the capital of Botswana.
I do. It's Gaborone, but
Jesus.
There you go. That much we know, but other than that, I can't answer anything else.
Do we know that, Ben?
Well, we're a team here.
Collective.
Spags, name one entirely random country. Ask him what this capital is.
Kazakhstan. What's the capital?
Astana.
Wow. All right. That's all I had.
Knows them all. He's our own little Rain Man over here. Let's talk Pittsburgh and Houston. Ben, they're 3-point favorites on the road. CJ Stroud's look pretty good, but 41.5 point total. Pittsburgh defense, though, they're not just like, they're not terrible. So we'll see what happens for Houston here. Tank Dell's going to get some ownership. That backfield is, for me, mostly just to spin a stay away spot all season long for Houston. Nico Collins always has some viability because Stroud has really liked Tank Dell and Nico. Woods has gotten some work, but more, less appealing targets going to him. I actually want to hit this game on both sides, guys, just so we can move it up a little quicker and get to some good ones. How are you approaching either side of this or both sides of this game? Yeah,
so Goody mentioned it in his super chat.
Was it a super chat etiquette moment?
Best in the business. He was asking about the Sims loving Pickett stacks. Where's that opportunity cost? Because I get it. It does feel gross. I think really this is where looking at like your lineup as a whole is so important, because when you compare, at least when I have, Pickett and Pickens and Freiermuth to Allen, Cook, and Diggs, it's like, well, I want the Buffalo side. But what do your one-offs look like if you get to the Pittsburgh stack? Are you able to go get Allen? Are you able to go get Chase? Are you able to go get McCaffrey even? And I think that's really where the utility of this game comes in. Houston has shown willingness to throw on the other side. So although I don't feel super comfortable with Pickett and these pay down options, Spags mentioned Austin as well earlier. they really do unlock a lot of salary. And even on the other side, for me, Nico Collins and Tank Dell and these guys, they are nice run backs if you want to go there for the pass catchers. So I don't have anything in the Houston backfield, but I am getting to some of those Pittsburgh stacks. I am running it back with some of the Houston pass catchers. And I think that allows me to really spend up on some of these other games.
Okay. I like it. By the way, our top stacks tool does grade out this Pittsburgh stack pretty nicely. My guess is a lot of that is from a value perspective, Spags. Do you like anything in this game?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of Pittsburgh too. Again, the Sims, I think it makes sense why they would have this be a thing, because basically you're going to get some chalky players alongside Pittsburgh stacks where you can get Christian McCaffrey, you can get Keenan Allen, maybe you can get both in the same lineup and get it stacked up with Pickett and Pickens, or Pickens plus one of Austin and Freiermuth. But all these guys are coming up a ton for me here. And I get the logic. Houston's D has not been very good on the year, given up positive metrics, 0.01 EPA per rush, 0.03 EPA per pass, 0.02 EPA per dropback. So these are all positive numbers. So actually, theoretically, could be a get well spot for a Pittsburgh team that, despite how terrible they've been, despite how much I think everybody wants to beat up on Matt Canada, they are passing above expectation on the year too. 3% above expectation overall, 19% above expectation in the red zone. So I see the logic. I don't know the field's going to get here either. So if the Sims are telling you something and the field probably doesn't want to play Pickett double stacks or Pickett triple stacks, I guess you play it. I don't know that I want to personally put my brand on it, but Pickett's due for a better day. He's been not great to start the year, but the underlying metrics aren't awful. So if he just runs hot one day, this is the matchup to do it. I think the stacks make a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, I will say that you're talking about someone too in Pickens who actually does have that ability to break long touchdowns too. So, you know what I mean? At least there's that. If you have Pickett and you go, all right, well, 56-yard touchdown to George Pickens in this spot. Plus, the Houston defense, last week, I want to say that like 1 week samples don't do much for you. Kind of an outlier spot in a place like that against Jacksonville. The Jaguars are just known to fall on their faces at least a couple times a year as well. So we'll see. But yeah, Derek Stingley on the IR. They got some injuries. My only concern, Spags, and we'll wrap this game up with this, is I know that Houston looked fine last week, and I like it. I'm a fan of CJ Stroud, but that offensive line is clearly banged up.
Yeah, I have concerns with Houston and how they approach things overall. Just, in terms of matchups like this one that are a little more grit and grind. CJ Stroud pretty bad under pressure on the year, and we should see a lot of blitzing coming from Pittsburgh's way. 29% blitz rate for them. Stroud on the year, -1 EPA flat going against pressure plays. So not quite as bad as Lamar, not quite as bad as some of the other guys we talked about earlier, Sam Howell in particular. But I do think that Stroud has one weakness. I think he's been really great, kind of creating value for his guys. But if he gets blitzed and he does face that pressure, I think things go south for him. So I'm seeing a lot less Houston on my side. I think if you're going to go for the gusto, I do think the Pittsburgh stacks are really where it's at in this game.
Rams and the Indianapolis Colts. All right, Ben, here we go, baby. Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell, Kyron Williams playing 100% of snaps in week 3, 100% of snaps. He's clearly the guy that they're looking to use right now. Colts defense, though, not exactly bad. I mean, this is kind of one of those probably at the end of the season, they're middle of the road, maybe slightly above average overall. They really haven't looked terrible. But with the Rams, the reason we have to talk about them is because with Cooper Kupp remaining sidelined, they're also hoping he can come back against the Eagles next week. I hope he waits one more. That with everybody in this offense, no Cooper Kupp, no more Cam Akers. What a concentrated offense we've seen between Puka, even Tutu Atwell beneath him, significantly blown, but still like 25% target share. And then Kyron Williams playing every snap, played 95% of snaps in week 2, 100% in week 3. What are you doing with the Rams this week based on that alone?
Based on that alone, I think you really have to take notice of them. These are guys that I'm getting kind of across all formats. I like the price tags on all the sites. On OwnersBox, they're going to be very, really popular, and I think that that's completely fine with either quarterback. You can maybe even do, I'm not going to say a double quarterback lineup, but maybe. I like both sides of this game quite a bit, so you can go to those Rams pass catchers that you mentioned. I think the prices are right. Or Williams, he kind of just solidifies more of a balanced lineup. And I don't think he can be game scripted out. Game is, of course, in Indy, so ideal conditions for playing, competitive spread. I hope this game gets going because I have interest not just on the Rams side, but on Spags' guy on the other side as well.
What about you, Spags?
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of the Rams side more so. Getting a lot of Puka, a lot of Kyren Williams. I have some concern about Kyren Williams. He's projected for a lot of ownership around the industry. Stokastic has him about 18%. He's upwards of 25% on some other sites out there. So maybe a little more Kyren Williams in play than you'd like to see. And this is a team that on the year has shut down running back passes pretty well, negative 0.7 EPA on those plays. Also shutting down the run, negative 0.15 EPA on run plays is the Colts D so far. So Kyren could be like, the volume is so huge that I'm not going to say I'm going to outright fade him, but I do think he is walking into a tougher matchup than it may seem. Whereas Puka, I think the matchup is pretty pure. They cannot defend passes under 20 yards, the Colts D. So I think Puka should kind of be able to get what he wants. But I would like to get more of the Colts side. I think Colts plus a bring back on the Rams side looks good to me. AR should be able to get going again here. I think not defending the runs against QBs so far this year is Rams D, 0.45 EPA there. Red zone rushes as well, 0.3 EPA allowed in those plays by the Rams D. And we know AR is going to get the red zone work to some amount too. So I like this game. I think this game is quietly one that could be a shootout. I'm a little leery of the Kyren Williams ownership. It's a lot of Kyren Williams ownership potentially.
You know, you and I didn't get to discuss this because you weren't on the show last week, but your Anthony Richardson's call in week 2 was looking so good.
You're going to have a 40-point game at some point. Like, it's coming. I don't know if it's this week, but it's coming soon.
And then it's even worse that Gardner Minshew comes out and they drop, 30-plus points in that game. Like, Richardson just would have been, probably, you don't know because it was still early in the game, but he was well on his way at that ownership to becoming a guy that was winning people tournaments in week 2.
Yeah, I mean, look, excited to see what we're seeing so far, but, brain health, very important. You got to keep these guys healthy for the long term. So I would have liked to see him play last week, but again, you get yourself called out of a game. They don't let you back in now. So that's something to adjust to with these players.
Yeah, right. Being a company man over here, you're waiting for a call from the NFL. You got to watch your brain,
Protect the shield.
I agree. Favorite way to play this game, Ben, as a whole?
I'm really comfortable with either side, but honestly, my favorite way to play it is I'm going Richardson, Pittman, and bringing it back with one of the Rams. I think any of the 3 are fine.
So you bring it back with Williams too. You don't have an issue there.
Oh, no problem at all.
He's running a ton of routes and he's getting targeted. It's just so many. Go ahead. I know
I already complained about this to you.
Yeah.
Normally when you're a running back and you get 7 targets, you convert 5 if it's a bad day. Like, Stafford was throwing 2-yard passes 5 yards over his head. That's so atypical. Like, those dump offs for Kyren Williams should convert to PPR gold on a normal week. It just didn't happen in the last time we saw that game.
I wonder if this game, Spags, just ends up being the game that you need to have.
It wouldn't shock me. I mean, they're on turf. They're playing, no weather issues at all. And 2 teams that I think are bend but don't breaky kind of, and I think it's certainly possible they break here. So, and the total too is just low enough that it's like it just takes a little bit of a 7-point swing the other way, and then it's a shootout.
Right, exactly. It's not the highest, but it's like 5th or 6th highest, but it's only 1 or 2 points away from all of those other games that aren't Miami, Buffalo. Yeah, so we'll see. Tampa Bay and New Orleans. Nolans. Tampa 3.5-point dogs, 40-point total. All right, Ben. I have a lot of respect for this Saints defense. Mike Evans is very good. We know that, even though uncharacteristic plays in that Eagles game. But this matchup against Marshawn Lattimore has not been good to him over the years at all. At all. You have Godwin, Rachaad White. The volume should be there again, albeit in a pretty rough matchup. And then on the other side, I really didn't think there was any possibility that Derek Carr was going to play in this game. And now they're saying that he's expected to start with that AC sprain, that sprained AC joint. Alvin Kamara's back as well. The one thing about this game, and I'm just you can take it wherever you want, but the one thing about this game that consistently stands out to me, well, really, I should say for the Saints in general, is the fact that you want to talk about really condensed target shares. Chris Olave and Michael Thomas. I understand that Alvin Kamara is coming back, but to be fair, they didn't use him. They didn't frequent him in the passing game nearly as much as you would have thought they would have last year. They're just getting a ton of balls when Derrick Henry or when Andy Dalton, Derek Carr is out there to Olave and Michael Thomas. And Michael Thomas remains cheap.
He does, and that keeps him, I think, in the conversation. I won't spend a ton of time here on this game because I just don't have a lot. I really respect the Saints defense, as do you, which renders Tampa, I'm a big fan of Rachaad White. I just don't think this is the greatest spot. Not looking to mess around with Godwin and Evans, no Baker. On the other side, I have a little Michael Thomas. Olave, I get it. He's just in such a competitive range, and I'm not ready to go to Kamara. Not much to say. I don't know what we get out of this game. I hope it completely busts. I don't want this game to shoot out whatsoever.
Neither do I. But I will say a sub 5% Michael Thomas. I do not hate that at all. I can understand why people may not want to get there. But if Michael Thomas, let's just assume that listen, from what I've seen from Thomas this year, I know he hasn't had any huge games, but 25% target share, and he's looked good. He had that great reception where he stayed in bounds kind of near the pylon, right? Near the end zone. That was like, that looked awesome. Also, he can just kind of get open against anyone if need be. So in a tougher spot like this, maybe Olave has a tougher time getting the ball. $5,200 Thomas is somebody that I would be pretty happy, even if I got 10% of him, double the field. Don't mind that. But this game in general, Spags, I'm not getting a ton of.
Yeah, I'm getting some New Orleans stacks, which I don't feel great about. An AC joint sprain is never the best thing in the world to be coming off of as a QB. But if he's going to be playing, I think he's still always going to benefit from trying to treat a guy as fully healthy. So I'll have some Carr singles and doubles, and I think that is okay by me. I'll probably have 5% of that. And I'm with you. I think Olave and Michael Thomas both look good. As a Tampa Bay team that on the year actually really bad defending deep passes. Worst mark in the league at a 2.3 EPA per throw of 20+ air yards. So that is their one biggest weakness on defense. And that is the one thing that Derek Carr does, at least in normal, healthy shoulder times, fruitful shoulder days. He's able to get it downfield pretty efficiently. So Carr stacks look okay. And I think Rachaad White still an okay play. Saints D historically a better run defense than they've been so far this year. They're only stuff to run at a 16% rate, 0.03 EPA per rush. So Rachaad White can kind of lame his way there as he has a few times, and it wouldn't shock me.
If you had to pick one player from this game that you like the most, who would it be?
Probably Rachaad White, just because of the workload and the price tag. But yeah, I think I would go with Rachaad White.
Okay. For me, it's actually Michael Thomas, Ben. For you, I assume Rachaad White as well?
No, it'd be Michael Thomas.
Oh,
yeah, the Saints defense freaks me out.
Me too. Yeah, that isn't to say that, there aren't going to be some spots, some chinks in the armor, but yeah, definitely a tough one for sure. All right. Got 3,300 people watching with us. Appreciate you guys. I think 850 likes over the final 15 minutes of this show is doable, Ben. We're at 6. That would be almost 194 people being kind enough to show us some love. I know Brandon Katz has done it already. If nothing else, I know Brandon Katz came in and immediately hit that thumbs up because he loves us.
Well, so we got one down. Yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable target. Normally I take, because you say crazy things, I think we might be able to eke that out.
Okay. We'll get there. Popcorn, so sorry for repeating myself, fella. Denver and Chicago. If only we had an hour and 45 minutes to do the show. Spags, here we go, man. Denver and Chicago battle between the broken. 48 or 46.5 point total, though. Ben, by the way, are you on Chicago? 3.5 point dogs? Did you do it?
I'm doing it.
Okay. It actually is the right bet. I'm with you. I came around throughout the week. I came around. Like, these teams are both just so bad that if you're getting outside of a field goal, you kind of just have to, right? You have to bite the bullet.
It's a true coin flip.
It is.
So give me 3.5.
I love Cortland Sutton today, Spags, despite some bad, costly drops last game. But my biggest question now is, boy, Javonte Williams. Like, what are we doing with Javonte Williams today?
I am getting a lot of him, and he's not my favorite player in the game. Like, I think the way you beat up on both these teams is through the air, but we obviously did see Denver give up a lot of production on the ground, and Chicago has been pretty bad versus the run all year. So it makes sense to get Javonte at the price tag. I think it's mostly the price tag that pushes you there, but Field projecting for about 16% ownership on Stokastic, about 15% around the industry as well. That feels like a pretty good number. I think I might be slightly above it, though. We'll see with some of the moving parts here and guys coming in like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, if that changes things for me. But I think Javonte looks good. I would like more stacks of this game, to be honest. I'm surprised I'm not getting more. The tough part is that sometimes you see teams going against a really bad defense, and bad offense versus bad defense doesn't automatically result in an offensive win, just because the offense could be so bad they can't even get things going with wide open space around them. And you do kind of expect a little bit of a dead cat bounce for the Denver D after how bad they were last week. But I think this game should shoot out. So I would like more ownership than the Field, and I'm probably going to force my way to it. And I think that includes Denver stacks, that includes Chicago stacks. Like something could really go off here, and I don't think there's enough ownership to scare you away.
The thing for me too, Ben, when it comes to the Broncos is the massive disparity in price point between Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. And then you've got a guy like Marvin Mims. Maybe you just start giving him more opportunities, more snaps at 3,900. Maybe you should, because he can definitely stretch the field, and we've seen him make some big plays.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a tricky part. I think for most people, Sutton is the guy that stands out just because of the price point, and he's the one that stands out for me. I'm also just a gigantic fan of his game. I think he's perpetually undervalued. So I get it. I'm getting to Denver. I'm getting to this game. You know, if someone like Jerry Jeudy just happens to consolidate all that and has the explosive plays, I'll have to live with it and say, you know, I just wasn't getting there. So I'm going to Sutton. I'm going to Williams. And I hope this is another game that I could use, probably getting over the total.
I'm getting to some Williams too. What are you doing? And by the way, Williams in like decent enough game scripts has actually been very involved, even though the snap shares look pretty split between him and Pirine. You've seen Williams, like they want to give this guy the football. So let's hope he gets a lot of it today. For both of you guys, before we move on, don't worry, we got plenty of time, because these remaining 3 games outside of Vegas and the Chargers, Arizona, San Francisco, shouldn't take us too long. Same with Patriots and Dallas here. What are you guys doing? Spags, you first, and then throw it straight over to Ben. What are we doing with the Bears today?
I would like to get Fields, singles, and doubles. I think it's a weird pricing this week on DraftKings for the backfield for Chicago, where both Roshan and Deonta Foreman are higher priced than Khalil Herbert, even though Herbert has been the lead back. Obviously, we're expecting a flippening happening there at some point, but it hasn't happened fully yet. So I think you can get away with Fields plus a running back plus a receiver. But I think the one that jumps out to me is going to be Fields and DJ Moore combined. Not a lot of ownership here, not a lot of combinatorial ownership for those guys, which looks pretty good. But I think that you can really attack stacks of Fields here, and the hope would just be that he regresses to even as bad as he was last year, and that could work out because the underlying usage is still good, getting a lot of rushes per game, 8 rushes per game, still targeting downfield at a high rate, still getting play action at a pretty good rate. So everything with Fields is setting up well for this spot against the Denver defense that we saw. I mean, hapless would be a compliment, I think, to how they played last week. And you got to expect them to be better here, but I think Field stacks could be a thing that wins all the money this week, and it wouldn't shock me.
If I go to Ben, I know 100% he's going to agree with you.
Just remember, if I was always on that, so if it works, I get the credit. But if it does not work, Spags said that all first, not me. So, listen, if I'm playing Fields, I'll get that right now. But to me, if you get double-digit rushing attempts from Fields today, I don't care what happens. Honestly, if he plays awful, I'll live with it. I just don't understand in week 2 how that could have happened with 4 attempts for 3 yards. If you give me 11, 12, 13 carries for him, I'm fine with it. I'll live with the results because I think he has so much explosiveness, and DJ Moore should be the guy. It's a pretty easy pairing. It's not expensive. Your one-offs look good. You have easy run backs on the other side, and he's at home, which I do think helps. So there's, of course, a downside with the Bears being as dysfunctional as they are, and maybe Fields is just not the guy. But I've seen it, and I don't, if I liked him $1,000 more expensive in previous weeks, I'm not overly deterred just yet by Fields, and I think the price is right on all the sites. On OwnersBox, you can have a more of a pocket passer QB with him, and then you have him as your second quarterback. That's what I'm looking to do, and on where you only have one quarterback spot, I'm still getting to him. So Fields is really important for me today.
Derek Carr, Njoku, Justice Hill, Miles Sanders all officially active today. So we've got that. Seymour said, pause. The words you guys use, the words you guys be having, you guys, the words, the words you guys use be having me laughing. So I assume that was when you referenced naked fields. It just means playing them without a quarter or without a pass catcher. Ben, on OwnersBox where you have Superflex, are you still fond of the idea of taking some of these rush heavy, with legs, mobile quarterbacks, running them in the Superflex spot where you can play a second quarterback and not worrying about having anybody stacked with, but maybe running it back in that same lineup if you're talking OwnersBox Superflex format?
I love that idea because again, you don't sacrifice, the quarterback where like Herbert, who we'll get to in a second, where you're going to have run backs. You can pair him with a Richardson, a Lamar, a Fields, or someone where it makes your skinny stacks a lot more viable for that type of player. Instead of having, 2 QBs plus 2s, now you're running out of skill position players. I think that's an interesting lineup construction. And looking at our tools for OwnersBox, again, we have all those projections. We have the ownership. I find myself wanting to do that type of build. I think it could be very effective this week.
I mean, Spags, when it comes to OwnersBox Superflex and run backs and naked quarterbacks, when it all boils down to it, it's just about combinatorial ownership. You know what I mean?
I mean, ultimately, that's what you got to get a low combinatorial ownership. And if you also cut the parlay at the same time, you're doing it well. So get, no naked fields out there. You want him fully clothed and fully stacked.
Yes, yes, we do. 34% on OwnersBox. There's no way. I mean, what are we getting to? 70 maybe? I don't. What, you think possibly less?
Yeah, I mean, if you told me I could bet that, I would bet under. Yeah. Okay. Which is insane. That means 3 out of every 10 lineups that you're competing against are dead in the water before you even play.
Yeah, and we're 7 likes away from 850. So appreciate you guys in advance. One other thing before we wrap this up with the 3 final games, guys. Stokastic Hall of Fame. You get a free month of any package that you want, up to $200 value. You want the whole entire NFL package for the month, plus premium Discord and all of our tools. All you got to do is go to stokastic.com/avatar. I think we have the link down there, but stokastic.com/avatar. Download the profile picture, the avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. DraftKings, FanDuel, OwnersBox, doesn't matter. You finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, even if it's a 5-cent entry, okay? If you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and tweet your wins with the screenshot to us. It's Stokastic HOF. Include Spags and Ben and myself because we like seeing these big wins. You're not just getting inducted into the Hall of Fame ceremony that Jordan and I record each week. It's a great time. We induct everyone, do the bragging for you, show the wins, all the shout outs. You're also getting a free month of any package you want, up to $200 value. So you already won. You're having a great time. Now, another windfall of great things coming your way. Free package, you choose it, whatever the hell it is you want, and get inducted into the Hall of Fame. Be etched into stardom forever here on the Stokastic streams. Have all 4,000 people watching you and going, he did it. But for real, rock that avatar, whether DraftKings, FanDuel, OwnersBox, wherever it is you play, stokastic.com/avatar. All right, fellas. Spags, I'm going to throw this to you for a second and get your thoughts on this next game. It's the Raiders. It's the Chargers. Garoppolo is out, so it's Aiden O'Connell. What are you doing with the 6.5-point dogs against the Chargers team that has not looked good? I will say, and I said it all week, if Garoppolo was in, I know for a fact, even if I had to do it myself, my highest owned stack would have been Garoppolo, Adams, and Jacoby Myers. But this throws a wrench into the works.
Yeah, I think as a result of no Garoppolo out there, I am getting more Josh Jacobs, which I don't hate, but I also don't know that that's my favorite play in the world. It's 7,100. We'll see if I might actually massage that one the other way, but he is projected to be, for me, about 2x the field with the Stokastic ownership. Josh Jacobs projected for 16% on Stokastic. I don't want to have double that, but I think that's sort of what the Sims are pushing me towards. So I get the logic. Less Adams, but still a good amount, 10% about of Adams and Myers. I do expect there to be less Myers involved just because of the way that Jimmy G plays versus an Aiden O'Connell, where I don't expect him to take the second read, Aiden O'Connell, that is, take the second read quite as much as Jimmy G does, where Jimmy G is just the guy that runs a functional offense. So if Adams is covered, if it's too tight, he just goes Myers' way. I think Aiden O'Connell will probably force Adams more of the ball in those spots. So maybe that gives Adams some more upside, but could just make it uglier. And on the Chargers side, you're getting so much Keenan Allen that I actually asked Loughy and Ben before the show, like the Sims are putting you on Keenan Allen a lot, like 70% ownership, 80% ownership of Keenan Allen, to the point that I'm wondering, do I just not play Keenan Allen, have that be my way to get different and just run the best lineups then with no Keenan Allen involved? That said, he's probably the best play on the slate, probably the most logical play on the slate. Price tag looks good. Ceiling is there. The issue is that he's going to be 20 to 30% owned. And, is that going to pay off inherently? I don't know, but I think that's the hero play to make today, is just fade Keenan Allen entirely and just put yourself on a different track. But I think Keenan Allen just the best play on the slate and hard to avoid.
Your favorite plays from this specific game, especially without Jimmy Garoppolo. What are your favorite plays and what are your biggest stands here?
Biggest stand right now would be Josh Jacobs. I think I'm either going to be double the field on Keenan Allen or no Keenan Allen. So I'm not sure which way I'm going to play that yet. I have to kind of run through some permutations on how that looks, but I think he is the make or break point of the slate for everybody. And then besides that, I think if you are not playing Keenan Allen, especially just getting little bits and pieces of the other players in the hopes that Allen is, maybe has a 20-point day that doesn't hurt everybody, but doesn't quite have the ceiling. And you capture a touchdown from Josh Kelly, capture a touchdown from Palmer or Everett. But I think that's sort of the way to do it. It's just, it all comes down to Keenan Allen in this game to me.
Ivan, do you guys ever deviate from the Sims? I do ROI boosts all the time. Yeah, absolutely. EMAC, member for 29 months. What's up, EMAC? Using the free super chat here for Loughy, talking positive about AOC. I get it. Ben, how are you playing this game on both sides?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the more important games on the slate, and certainly quarterback situation for Vegas makes it a little trickier. I'm still getting to those pass catchers as one-offs occasionally, and the Sims are pushing you to Jacobs, who I think he's a little expensive, but I'm okay with it. And then on the other side, that is the decision point with Keenan Allen to Palmer to Everett. Like, how are you doing that? Are you rolling? You can take all of them and play Herbert. You can go one-offs at various price ranges, or you can define your slate. If you do fade Keenan Allen, you can basically do whatever you want and know that you've probably leveraged with those lineups. Like you don't have to be as cognizant of cumulative ownership and things like that, just because that is such a large piece of the puzzle in that upper wide receiver range. So I'm getting a healthy amount of most of these guys. I have some Herbert stacks. I'm kind of canceling the game. I'm around the field with most of these guys. This is not where I made my stand.
I was going to ask, what's your biggest stand? I guess your biggest stand is just coming in around the field then.
If this game explodes and goes crazy, I will have some teams that have some life. If this game completely crashes, I certainly will have some dead teams, but I will have some other teams that are field stacks and things like that are thriving. So I really said, you know what? I have stands elsewhere. I'm not going to get burnt by a guy that could break the slate, even though he's probably overowned.
All right, let's talk Arizona, San Francisco. They're 14-point dogs, 43.5-point total. Ben, do you have anything from Arizona today?
No.
Okay. Spags?
Nope.
A little bit of Rondale, a little bit of Zach Ertz, but not enough to matter.
Okay. Just not the James Conner position for us, especially given how stacked this wide receiver or running back position is in the mid-range this week.
No, I could see the logic in that, but no, I didn't get any projection wise.
Yeah. I also don't think it's entirely necessary. He's actually been good. And that line is actually blocked really well for James Conner, believe it or not. I think this could be the game it all comes crashing down, those Spags. I mean, they're coming off that huge emotional win at home, 12.5-point dogs. San Francisco has now not played since last Thursday. They've got Debo healthy. They've got Ayuk back. They've got Kittle. They have Christian McCaffrey. The question now isn't, hey, do we like playing San Francisco? It's now that everybody's healthy, except, by the way, for Eli Mitchell. That is interesting because, what happens now? Is it Prince Davis or whatever his name? Like, who is it that's is it Davis Prince or Prince Davis? I always mix
Davis Price. And then Jordan Mason is probably the one who gets the
Price. I'm calling him Prince. Yeah, right. So either way, though, how easy is it for you to get to these stacks, and how much of Christian McCaffrey are you getting to?
So I'm at about half the field on McCaffrey right now, which I don't love, but I think the price point thing, to me, the way that you can build today and try to get different from everybody is just going to be pay down at every position, or not pay up, I guess is the better way to put that. So if you don't play a single 9K guy, just go to all 8K and under. And I think that's the way to get different. So I don't love the idea of being under on McCaffrey. I think there's a world where Jordan Mason wins someone a tournament today, just because of getting those Eli Mitchell touches if he gets them throughout the game. And then also the Niners go up heavy. So there's something to play here, but exposure-wise, nobody above 10% in this game for me.
Ben, San Francisco, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey. Kittle would have looked so good if Debo is out of this game. Just at a horrible tight end position. He's 5,100. But that kind of makes me pump the brakes a little bit here. What I would like to do for the pass catchers, I want to have some of these guys, kind of what Spags was saying. But I'm not sure I want my day to be contingent upon trying to guess which one of them happens to be the guy as 14-point favorites, especially when you have Christian McCaffrey in the backfield.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I have a little bit just because of how good of players they are. And if they score 6 touchdowns today, one person could randomly have 3 or 4 of them. That happens all the time. It's just variance. So I get it. San Francisco should roll them. But it's not a game. I didn't get to Purdy, so that changed a lot.
Okay. Favorite play from this game?
McCaffrey, but I only have about 10%.
Spags, same to you.
Yeah, McCaffrey, but it's same thing. Only about 11% of them.
I think we're all on the same page here. Exorbitantly priced. Anyway, New England and Dallas, let's wrap it up. Ben crushed 850 likes, but we're at 914. It's actually possible that we hit 1,000.
Well, you need basically a second because we got about a minute left. So good luck with all that.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to have you.
No, that would be impressive. That's tough to do.
No, I'm glad you keep this optimistic viewpoint throughout each week. And hey, if nothing else, you're consistent. What are you doing with Dallas and the Patriots today? Zeke is expected to have a starter role. That's interesting. I'm still good there. It's not like he's super cheap. If we're talking 4K Zeke, you could make an argument for me. Essentially, though, I don't really love this game. I'm actually surprised that the total sits at 43.5. I really thought it'd be a little bit lower than that, 41.5 or something, but it's not. So I have no problem being wrong there. But they're 6-point dogs. They don't really have much in the way of quality pass catchers. You have a split backfield. For New England, I just have trouble getting to anything here.
Nothing for me. I think New England's best chance in this game is to slow tempo and control, which renders the game awful for DFS. If New England's successful here, I think this could be one of the worst games.
Spags?
Yeah, same thing. I will get some Pollard just because I think he's the way you get McCaffrey level production for about 1,300 or more than that cheaper. So that's the logic there, but I don't even love Pollard. Like, it's just, this feels like an ugly matchup with a lot of defense on both sides. Maybe Dallas D getting some turnovers against New England, given how much they drop back. But yeah, both teams kind of looking ugly besides Pollard.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's tough. I think Pollard's really the only spot. Ben, last question for Dallas before we close it out. Is it Pollard and that's it? Or are you getting any CeeDee Lamb, anybody else here?
I have some shots of Ferguson, right off Freiermuth, same price range. I think he's the type of guy who could just get a couple looks. But yeah, Pollard, if I have the money, I feel comfortable with him as well.
All right, man. We got our like per second. We're at 999 going.
See, I told you.
There it is. 1K. Thanks, guys. Hey, have a great rest of the day. Win some money and hit us up when you do. We'd love to see it. Rep that Stokastic avatar and get rewarded for it, but nothing else. Love you guys hanging out with us, being part of the team here. Appreciate you. You are the best. Stick around. Coming up next, it's Matt Gajewski. It's Eric Lindquist, live before lock, taking you all the way up to 1. Let's have a great week, boys. We'll reconvene next week, next Sunday at 10 a.m. Until then, we'll see you next time. Peace.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to NFL Live Before Lock, presented by OwnersBox. Oh, other shoulder. I'm Eric Lindquist, excited to be back with you talking week 4 in the NFL streets. Missed you for week 3, but good to be back. Hit that like button for us as we get started. You guys did a phenomenal job of that already on the previous shows, but you love Matt Gajewski and me too, right? Yeah, of course you do. You missed us last week, and, well, they did a phenomenal job there. Chris Spags on Live Before Lock alongside Neil Orfield, but we got my guy, the college football. We need you today, my friend. We have a lot of new quarterbacks I've never heard of. That'll be fun. Aiden O'Connell, what a time to be alive. But Mac_Gajewski over on X. How you doing, my dude?
I'm doing great, man. Really excited for today's games, which is usually the case. But I feel like we have some great ones for DFS and then some interesting spots to navigate for those of you playing tournaments. I think it's going to be really fun. Wide gaps in pricing, especially at quarterback. And a lot of that's going to decide the slate. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Did you enjoy the Packers game last week?
Yeah, it started off as a little bit of a dud, as I'm sure. And then the ending was absolutely awesome. I don't get a chance to go to Lambeau Field a lot, so it was really fun. Thanks for asking. How was your weekend?
You're so welcome. It was great. Got to go hang up in the mountains with a mountain dog, my mountain dog, Duke. It was a lovely time, Turned older. I'm not going to say how old. Everybody says 40, and that makes me upset. Although feel closer to that than I should be. But anyway, we got Jordan Klein, who gets somebody who looks at you the way that he looks at Matt Gajewski when he talks. I mean, is there ever been somebody more in love through a screen? Producer Jordan Klein just absolutely fawning over Matt Gajewski. Is it the muscles? Is it the like no bullshit hot takes? Like, okay, yeah. Anyway, very excited to talk about this slate with the actives and actives. Anything that stood out to you? Because I think it was pretty run of the mill.
Pretty.
Oh, no.
The DTR, Deshaun Watson news. A really cheap quarterback. You were essentially running into Aiden O'Connell. Now we have another option. So I like that in the dynamics of this particular slate. But otherwise, nothing too crazy. Some defensive stuff later, but for DFS purposes, I think that's the main one.
All right. Well, let's get to it, shall we? Because it's going to be a wild one. I'm going to be updating my Sims live as we're going here on this show. We're going to talk a little bit of OwnersBox here at the end of the quarterback segment, mainly because you can play 2 in the same lineup, and I think the Superflex concept over there makes it a lot of fun. You can sign up for that down below as well. Jordan Klein going to throw a link in as well for you. So we'll talk a little bit of OwnersBox. It's going to be a great time to be playing over there today with some of these game stacks we're trying to put together. But always, anything else you wanted to talk about? You want to just dive in?
Yeah, let's dive in. Let's do it for the people.
All right. Yep. Starting with expensive quarterbacks, we'll work our way down the board. And, well, there's some game environments that they stand out here on this specific slate. I think at the top end of quarterback, though, a lot of the familiar faces that we know and that we love, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, going to be a little bit contrarian, but we'll start with those 4. Everybody above 7,500. Who are you getting to the most in tournaments today, Matt?
I am trying to play this range a little bit. I think it's going to come in slightly underowned. The 2 players I have the most interest in are Justin Herbert and Josh Allen. It's mainly from a game environment perspective. I'm a little worried about Philadelphia just as massive favorites over Washington. That can work for or against you. Jalen Hurts can be a part of a potential onslaught here, or you could see Philadelphia take a little more of a vanilla approach and try to keep Hurts out of harm's way, more or less. Whereas the Chargers game, the Buffalo game, those project to be more back and forth. So I think if you're just debating between these 4 players at the top, there's a little more safety with Allen and Herbert. I don't have a strong preference between them. There's a 400 difference in salary on DraftKings. So it's kind of whoever fits in my lineup. I am, in particular, me personally, I'm playing more Allen, just the way that game sets up. And it seems to be coming in a little underowned, in my opinion. I think Lamar's a pretty distant 4th among those guys at the top with that horrific game environment. They're down some offensive linemen. We know that Cleveland pass rush is formidable. He's going to be under duress quite a bit in that game, not to mention down 2 of his top 4 pass catchers if you want to include Mark Andrews.
I've kind of been thinking about this a little bit where it's like, doesn't that provide some type of like the access to the ceiling that we're looking for from Lamar? Since J.K. Dobbins went out, obviously you saw 6 rushing attempts right out of the gate, double-digit rushing attempts the last 2, having to get him back involved, back into the fray, 100 yards plus 2 tutties, along with 2 fumbles, of course, against the Colts last week. if he's going to be under duress all game like we kind of expect, something tells me I should be playing more Lamar Jackson than I currently am.
Yeah, I mean, it goes both ways. He could be taking sacks or he could evade them and end up with more rushing opportunity. I think it just adds volatility to his projection, which already isn't great. And I think a lot of that just stems from the game environment.
Yep.
Total below 40 points. I think both defenses are pretty interesting now. There's definitely some concern with Cleveland now that we have DTR under center. He's basically a complete unknown at the NFL level. If he just isn't ready, maybe this game ends up being slow paced, low scoring, and Cleveland's not doing their job to keep it close either. So I think that's at least worth mentioning. Kind of goes both ways, in my opinion.
Yeah, UCLA sucks now, though, so that's always a good sign.
Just wait, they'll be fine.
Okay. Chip Kelly, he's the answer.
I like their 5-star freshman. He's just got to get a couple more snaps under his belt.
That is fair. All right, we continue on our merry way. Again, I think if you want to get to Josh Allen there, I'm a little bit underneath the field. Talked about that on the Thursday matchup show with Loughy, where I think Buffalo, Miami, maybe it didn't get jammed exactly the way that I thought it was going to, but we shall see where it finalizes here in the next hour. I'm looking at this range of quarterbacks, and I think a lot of people are as well. When we start getting down to Tua, who's completely unknown coming off of the festivities that he had, Kirk Cousins, my guy. Well, not my guy, not the answer to my Minnesota Vikings, but my guy today at 7,105% ownership. And then Anthony Richardson and Justin Fields. I have gobs and gobs of these two individuals in my lineups. I cannot believe how much I am getting to of these two. They're difficult in terms of I'm just basically playing singles with them. So I'm not encapsulating the entire game environment, or at least on their side of the ball, running back a lot of Rams, finding it uncomfortable here playing as much Justin Fields, DJ Moore as I am. But who are you landing on the most between 6,500 and 7,500? Because I expected this range to be higher owned, but now we got some cheapies to play with.
Yeah, I feel the same way as you about where these guys are coming in terms of ownership. For the players I'm getting the most of in this range, it's definitely Anthony Richardson. He has so many paths to a ceiling, and we've already seen it this year. And there's still risk, of course. You can go back to his Florida days, look at some of the box scores just briefly and see he was very up and down. I like how Indianapolis is using him, so I think it's going to be more ups than downs. And it's largely just because of the rushing equity he's taken on in this Indianapolis offense. A lot of that red zone work is going through him. He's actually surprised me a little bit as a passer. So I have no issues playing Anthony Richardson. He's my favorite. That game environment's pretty good. Tua, if we're including him in this discussion, should be mentioned. I think going a little under-owned, especially from what we've seen from him this year. He's got to be the front runner for MVP at this point. Really good game environment there. I'm honestly surprised that game's not coming in with more ownership. I think some of it might just be the value that opened up at quarterback below. Those are my two favorites. Fields is still a concern for me. Love that they used him more in designed attempts last week. But a bet on Fields is still kind of a bet on the Bears coaching staff, which is a bet I never really want to make outside of 150 builds. He's also pretty hard to use. Do you stack him? Do you run him naked? You have to answer those questions. I would probably prefer to stack him still, just the way the Bears have forced him to stand in the pocket. But he's risky, even though that game environment's pretty good. It's one of the best totals on the board, around 57.5, depending on where you look.
Yeah, the Miami Buffalo one, just to revisit that again, 52.5, 53. I think what's difficult about that game is the skill position players. They ain't cheap. You're looking at Tyreek Hill, 9,200, Stephon Diggs, 8,100, Jalen Waddle, 7,600. At the running back position, Mostert, Cook, both north of 6,300. Echan, if you want to be taking the insanely contrarian dart there, 5,700. He looked pretty good, given in garbage time run. But unless you're playing just Kincaid, Knox, Smythe, trying to mix and match tight ends into those builds, there's really no salary relief. You're utilizing everything to get to that game. But yeah, as you said, it's starting to come in a little bit under-owned here. And as I'm looking at the top stacks tool over here at Stokastic, we got Chargers, Vegas. That's not going to surprise anybody. Rams, Indiana. That is my puppy. Indianapolis, looking at them. I have so much of that game. And then Buffalo, Miami coming in third in terms of our stacks rating. So that is mainly my reason, is that I'm getting to so much of that Rams Indy game that I can't really stop myself. Let's move our way down the board here as well, because I want to plug. If there was a perfect analyst to have on a show like this today, it is you. You're the reason that we are here, so we can carve through some of these unknowns at the quarterback position. Should we almost go like team by team so that you can do a quick breakdown of each one of these?
However you want to do it, man. I'm ready.
Yeah. So let's do this. I think this will be fun, and it's enjoyable to me too. I want you to give me the college they went to, how they looked in college, how you feel their profile is going to look in the professional level. And then, you're going to be an absolute god for the people when one of them smashes if you like them. Ready? Go.
Yeah.
Dorian Thompson. Let's do this. DTR over here, over in Cleveland. Tell the people.
Yeah, he went to UCLA. He was a bit of an older prospect, took a little time to come on there and develop throughout his career. I think his best skill, and especially at this point, as a young rookie, is probably his mobility. And I expect them to try to use that with him. He ran a ton in the preseason, and he basically I didn't even know if he was going to make the roster, but then he ran laps around all the other backups they had in Cleveland. It's not like Deshaun Watson's been particularly good. So what is the downgrade going to DTR? With the rushing equity, I think he's still probably going to have a pretty decent floor. And he's a guy that is going to scramble a lot for you too. Underdeveloped as a passer. So I do think we see that. Still a low total, but I think his floor is a little bit better than what Aiden O'Connell is going to give you.
Okay. Aiden O'Connell, next.
Yeah, he went to Purdue. He played in an air raid offense. He's the exact opposite. This guy takes a lot of sacks and he can't run, but I think he is a little more developed as a passer. Another guy that had an awesome preseason. And that game environment's way better. I like his stacking options a lot more with Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Josh Jacobs. They will be able to lean on in the run game a little bit. He's cheaper, but Aiden O'Connell's a phenomenal passer. I do think it's probably a downgrade from Garoppolo to him, but you're more than making up for that in salary.
I love you. I get Jordan Klein's affection. I get it. You're just smart. You're smarter than the average bear. Or
thank you. Nicest thing you ever said to me.
I've said nice things about you. Stop it. Rest of the range here, 6,500 down to 5,500. I'm just going to open up the entire rest of the quarterback board because we want to get to stacks. We want to get to OwnersBox. We want to get to all of the good things in all of the land here. Who are you looking at as your highest owned quarterbacks down here in the cellar, if you will?
Yeah, I guess one last thing I'll say on the rookies. I think they all come with volatility. They're rookies for a reason. And we've seen Stroud be awesome this year, but Bryce Young, who's a much better prospect than any of these guys, has struggled. I mean, we're talking day 3 rookies with O'Connell and DTR. These guys could flat out fail too. I think they're both in decent spots. DTR because he's mobile, O'Connell mainly because of his weapons, and LA is defensive concerns and a lot of injuries too. Like I'm not sure Bosa plays, Derwin James is out. So with that said, there's still concerns with them. There's even concerns with Anthony Richardson. Again, like first round rookie, but a guy who was really shaky in college. I don't know that we've seen a full floor game from Anthony Richardson. His rushing gives him a massive ceiling and I think a pretty good floor, but that could bottom out at any time here. As far as the other cheap quarterbacks go, I like Brock Purdy against Arizona. It's more a bet on a really good team total here. His weapons are back, seemingly fully healthy. I'm not sure how banged up Ayuk and Debo are going to be. Both of them miss some practice time this week, but they're both going to be active in this game. I like Purdy as a leverage play specifically off of a guy like Russell Wilson, who's going to project really well. The Bears are an absolute mess on defense. They're down 2 defensive backs today. The question with Russell is he hasn't done this in a long time. Shown a ceiling, that is. They could just lean on Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine. I'm not sure what they're going to do. And he's also very hard to stack. They did no favors by pricing Judy up. Cortland Sutton is kind of, I think, going to be the default guy people stack with. And I love Marvin Mims, but Sean Payton seems hell-bent on running him 5 routes a game. There was a little news that came out of Denver this week that his role is going to change. But does that mean he's running 90% of the routes or 30? Because this guy's been in the single digits every game. It's an egregious offense by Sean Payton. I don't know what he's doing out there. He has this infatuation for former New Orleans players like Brandon Johnson and Lil Jordan Humphrey. But I think that makes Wilson really hard to stack on top of just some of the inherent risk he has.
Oh, it's so tilting. I'm going to still have a little bit there because, yeah, I know it's extremely tilting. Cortland Sutton, I'm going to have some Mims as well. Again, the range of outcomes is there. You got to inherit some risk there, some natural risk by the fact that he could legitimately not see the field. He could also continue doing what he's doing and completely smash in the times that he is out there in any way, shape, and form, like he did in weeks 2 and 3. Brock Purdy's now the highest owned quarterback that we have here in our project. That is so tilting to me. I jammed him the last couple slates. Well, obviously couldn't on the showdown, but
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case. Like if you run optimizers just with base projections, you don't get any of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out right now, because I thought getting to him was going to fall into more of the contrarian sense. And now with our latest update, he is getting so much ownership. I will say Debo, kind of expected him to be sitting out for this one. And now with him in, that gives you another guy to kind of access to be able to play alongside some Christian McCaffrey. I cannot believe what I'm going to be doing with him this week. I mean, it is just it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. I have nearly 100% of Christian McCaffrey, and I think that that's completely opposite of a lot of people. We're at 9,200. They're going to other places, and I totally understand it. But Brock Purdy, I'm not going to be anywhere near this ownership if he's going to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate.
I don't think he's going to be.
Okay, well then I don't have to worry about that.
I could be wrong, dude.
You could be wrong. You could also be right. And you're tending to be right more than you're not. So there's that. Mr. Projection, Mr. Spreadsheet himself, doing a phenomenal job here in the college football streets and also bringing expertise here to the NFL streets. Should we build out an owner's box lineup here, Jordan Klein? I think that this is the time. This is the dance. Live every moment, leave nothing to chance. As we go to my favorite game stack, the Rams, the Colts. I want to be piecing this one together. I think having Richardson in conjunction with a Matt Stafford, Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell, Kyron Williams, the guaranteed timeshare that you're going to have there, I think they build out very nicely over at Owner's Box for today. You can see the interface that they have going. There's going to be overlay. There seems to be crazy amounts of overlay yet again today. What? 5,600 out of 1,300 lineup, 1,300 possible entries in this contest right now. That's phenomenal stuff. So be signing up over at Owner's Box in that link, and then take advantage of this, where you can play in that super flex down there at the bottom, another quarterback from the identical game. I find that to be a fun thing, a fun way to build. Matt Gajewski, obviously you come from the college DFS streets as well. I wanted to ask you, what are some different constructions? How do you go about building with Superflex DFS contests like you have on DraftKings for college football? And how is that different from regular NFL slates that we have with just one quarterback?
I think you can just use a basic heuristic of play two quarterbacks and try to stack them unless one of them is mobile. Unless there's some sort of restriction or weird part of the slate that I think you need to navigate. I don't think that is the case today. Fully would be looking at two quarterbacks, two stacks in a format like that.
It's fantastic. You know what? We're going to make it a 24-hour timeout. Oh, we're back on par, baby. Enjoy YouTube chat. You know what I'm talking about. The real ones do. Let's get ourselves back to it. God, Drew Holiday to the Celtics. My Twitter timeline is just blowing up right now. How excited are you to see Drew Holiday in Boston, Matt Gajewski?
I'm more excited to see the Bucs, man. I'm here in Milwaukee. I love Drew Holiday. He had great times in Milwaukee, but man, Dame, it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be an exciting time. Can't wait for NBA. We're so close. We are in the month of NBA. 3 weeks from now, get ready for NBA Live Before Locks, where Greg Ehrenberg and I will be leading you guys up to madness. It's going to be pure madness. Jordan Klein can't wait. But firing up over at Owner's Box here, I think putting those Matt Stafford in with Anthony Richardson, Kirk Cousins, Bryce Young probably doesn't feel like my favorite kind of a combination there in that spot, even though love the Kirk Cousins side, love getting to my Minnesota Vikings here today. Is there any other game stack that you might be looking at for Owner's Box today?
Yeah, basically just the games where we have the back and forth elite totals. I kind of like just full game stacks in a format like that too, especially where, there's going to be overlay in contests like this. A lot of times I'm just going to call it smaller field. It's not really fully that, but you don't need to get as much right. If this Miami Buffalo game goes off, or pick whatever contrarian game you like, could be the Bears Denver. If that game goes off and you have both quarterbacks on a side like that, I think that's something worth approaching in a contest that's going to overlay.
Perfectly said. Let's continue on our merry way, friends. To the running back position we go. Again, check out Owner's Box. Sign up for that at the link. Great stuff. Awesome product. Really easy interface to use, and the Sims tool works directly with it here. So if you've got that here at Stokastic, you're already equipped, ready to rock here in the Owner's Box streets. So take advantage of that. But starting at the running back position, I brought it up before. There's only one running back, 7,800 or above, and he's $9,200 Christian McCaffrey. But there is no Eli Mitchell expected for this football game. But he is playing 100% of snaps, and I find 9,200 in order to get a piece of this slate that is projected at an absurd clip. Him and Tony Pollard are just guys that I want to be over the field on, flipping a little bit of these builds where, yeah, I think Kyren Williams is a phenomenal piece of chalk at 6K, as does everybody else, though. Give me the expensive guys with the guaranteed workloads as well. Christian McCaffrey, Tony Pollard, I'm just jamming today, it would appear. How are you handling these expensive running backs?
Yeah, I like these expensive running backs a ton. There's not really any holes to poke in McCaffrey and Tony Pollard other than the salary. If you play one of them, you do have to sacrifice a receiving option, and those players are very strong too. So I think it's just kind of picking your poison and how you particularly want to build lineups. I think we're going to see some pretty gnarly ownership on some of these receivers like Keenan Allen and stuff like that. So if you forego one of them, end up with Christian McCaffrey or Pollard, I think will provide even more leverage in your lineups. I think that will differentiate you. Just leads to a different construction.
Yeah, it is wild to me. Absolutely wild that we're going to be looking at these running backs kind of getting jammed everywhere sub 6K here in order to make way for some of these wide receivers. So I'm going to be flipping the build to a certain extent, it would appear. And I'm using the Sims tool here at Stokastic to help me be able to do that. So Christian McCaffrey, Tony Pollard, and then Jacobs. I had a ton of him coming into the weekend. I think there's enough unknowns there with O'Connell where I'm not positive what we're going to be running into. I like hearing that, there's going to be zero mobility with him. There are increased opportunities possibly for dump offs, considering Jacobs has had less than a 10% target share alongside Garoppolo so far, even though I do expect that to change. And then Derrick Henry at 7K, brought him up on Thursday. I have to play a 5% Derrick Henry, a sub 5% Derrick Henry. It's as simple as that. The last home game environment, 25 carries for him. I'm going to be 3x the field, which isn't that hard to do at 5%. So that's cool. Who's your next favorite running backs to be getting to in this range?
The expensive range at the top?
Yep.
It's actually pretty thin range. I mean, we don't have a lot of options here. I'll include, like Josh Jacobs in this. Game environment mostly. But you have Aiden O'Connell under center. How much do they really drop him back and unleash him? I don't know. It's a legitimate question. I happen to think he's a pretty decent passer, but he's coming out of Purdue where he did have some up and down play. Josh Jacobs is a guy you can absolutely lean on. I'm not scared of LA's run defense. It's kind of been historically bad, and they are down a few players today. And we'll see on the status of like Bosa. He didn't practice all week. He's listed as questionable. That could be another downgrade. So your inactives might actually work in your favor if you play a guy like Jacobs. He's also a pivot off of Keenan Allen. I mean, you can also run skinny stacks, game stacks of this game. Jacobs is, I think, my next favorite out of the expensive backs or lack thereof.
Well, let's get to the running backs that I'm fading. This is definitely the 5K, 6K range here. Yeah, this is going to be extremely tilting if Javonte Williams goes off against the Bears. I'm just going to say it ahead of time. He hasn't exceeded 50% of snaps in a single game yet this season. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I don't see the workload going completely nuts now. The Bears giving up the most points to the running back position. I'm very aware of that, but it feels like a timeshare where there's so many other backs, even a Zach Moss at 6K. I know I'm getting the entire backfield. Like that's a far more certain thing that's occurring here in this spot in week 4. Maybe not week 5 or 6 if they get Jonathan Taylor back in some capacity. Probably not, though. Let's be serious. But Javonte Williams, fade. Alexander Mattison, as much as I love that game, fade with Cam Akers active. Miles Sanders getting a little bit, but man, 5 to 6K running backs here. I am just way below the field. How are you handling them?
I think I like this range a little more than you, but it's not necessarily the guys you mentioned. I think we have great pivots down here. So I don't have what did you say? You have 100% McCaffrey or something ridiculous?
Yeah. It's 87% or something in my last run. And then getting to Kyren Williams, I think he's a good piece of chalk at 6K. I'm okay playing Kyren.
Yeah, I think he's by far the best play, just not ceding any snaps whatsoever. McVay did talk about that a little bit. I don't really believe him. Ronnie Rivers is behind him. And if anything, maybe reducing Kyren's workload is just not having him on punt returns and ridiculous stuff. But anyway, as far as the other pieces that are semi-chalk, Zach Moss, he is the only guy in the backfield, but Richardson is back. You could now see goal line work and just more rushing go to Richardson. Madison, I'm worried about the workload as well. I'm fine with the Miami backs. I think they're actually going to come in under-owned because of the price jump. And it's a game I'm trying to bet on. Otherwise, in this range, some of the pivots I think you can get to. Alvin Kamara is back from suspension. He's 6,100. That backfield is horrible. Tony Jones, I don't know if he could play on, I don't know, the generals in the XFL. And then you have Kendry Miller coming off a knee injury. Well, we'll see. I don't think they're going to give Kendry Miller any kind of sizable workload anytime soon. James Conner, the big worry here is they're massive underdogs. Otherwise, his role's fantastic. And I like going to DeAndre Swift for Philadelphia. Another team, big favorites. Swift has had an awesome role. Yes, you're getting the backfield healthier around him, but he's been so good. Can you really take him off the field? And a lot of Boston Scott and Gainwell's touches lately have been in garbage time, whereas Swift is handling the more meaningful ones. So he's another guy I'll get to. If you're going really cheap, like some of you won't be able to pivot off Javonte Williams at 5,500 because the backs I just mentioned are a little more expensive. You can play Josh Kelly down here. No Eckler today, and Josh Kelly's handled an awesome workload. He just hasn't been efficient. This matchup's going to be a little better than some of the ones he's played in recently. He doesn't catch the same passes as Eckler, so it's a concern. But I think if you just need a pivot for leverage, he's in play.
Yeah, I don't like it, and I'm going to do it. I'll play some of him. Has there been a more miserable player to roster the last 2 weeks than Joshua Kelly?
Yeah, if you go back 3 or 4 years to when he played at UCLA, he was the same guy.
Oh, great. So we have that to look forward to.
Spiller's better than him, but
not
obviously
nice.
Spiller's been hurt and hasn't been able to beat him out. So I don't know how good he is anyway. But yeah, that's my hot take. Isaiah Spiller's better than Josh Kelly.
Justice Hill back in our lives. Sub 5K. Is there anything down here? Khalil Herbert, Justice Hill. No. Chuba Hubbard. No, thank you. Tajay Spears, who's been playing a ton of running back snaps. Nobody wants to play him because, again, still should be Derrick Henry in a game script that doesn't go completely berserk like weeks 1 and 3 for them. But anything sub 5K you're looking at whatsoever.
This range stinks.
Yep.
But ultimate leverage play, Samaje Perine, I do not have a lot of it. This is sprinkled into a 150 set. But you mentioned Javonte Williams not hitting 50% of the snaps, but I understand it. He's by far way more talented than Samaje Perine, but the role's not all that different. One of them's coming in with ownership and he's more expensive. The other one is unowned in 4,700. I don't hate it, I think is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, I don't completely want to bash my head in rostering him. I'm with you. Samaje Perine is the pivot. I don't think that it's that crazy to roster Samaje Perine today. I don't. I have nearly 8%, 7% Samaje Perine. I'm sprinkling him into a 150 set as well. If you want to play him in a lineup or two in a 20 max setting, don't completely hate it either for pure leverage purposes. Because again, the Javonte Williams thing, if it ends up beating me, so be it. I think it's a terrible play. That's all I have to say about that.
I think he's fine, but I think it's just as likely that Perine smashes. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess to your point, yeah, that would make him, not the best play. But anyway, I see people talking about the Bears backs. I think they're the only other players we should really mention down here. They don't project that well, even in our tools in a game environment that's decent. What I will say is I think there's some fragility with the projections. If you think this is the game Roschon Johnson overtakes Khalil Herbert, I don't hate playing him. It's in his range of outcomes. He's lapped the field in that Chicago backfield, but he's a rookie. He was a former quarterback at Texas. He's only been playing running back for 2 years now. This is his 3rd year. How much do they really trust him? And I don't know the answers to these questions, but if you think he's done enough to overtake that backfield, I think he's in play. I personally am not there yet.
Anything else you really want to cover at the running back? We had a couple of super chats. That's what it was. Jordan Klein, thank you so much. I wanted to talk about the Camaro one. We had a super chat from, let me find it here. This is great television. It's all right. It disappeared. But anyway, I know what the question was from our guy. I don't know how to use the filter, Jordan Klein. Fan funding. Hit the arrow. What are we talking about here? I have no idea. Hit the arrow. All I know is that there was definitely a question about Alvin Kamara on FanDuel, which, oh my Lord, Alvin Kamara, 6,100, coming back into a spot where against Tampa Bay, not the best get-right spot here, but every spot's a get-right spot. When you haven't played yet this year, coming off the suspended list here, what do you expect Alvin Kamara's workload to be here in this spot? And should he be somebody that somebody removes from their FanDuel lineups today?
I don't think so. I've got a list of injuries to watch. Vita Vea is questionable. Devin White's questionable. Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean. Carlton's questionable, Jamel Dean's out, you might end up with a slightly better matchup than you think. A lot of those guys didn't practice much, if at all, this week. So I don't hate Alvin Kamara over there. I wouldn't be forcing him out of your lineup because of matchups, if that makes sense. I think to the workload, I think he gets a pretty good workload. I got to say the floor is somewhere around 15 touches. They just have such a bad backfield around him. I don't see any way you could justify giving Tony Jones even change of pace work. Kendry Miller, sure. I'm worried about the injury with him. I don't know. I think Kamara is pretty good play.
Tony Jones. Who? Tony Jones. Who?
He went to Notre Dame. I love him, but he sucks.
Oh, back then Irish didn't want him. Now he's not hot.
Mike Jones.
Nobody still wants him. Yeah, it was
I understand your hip hop references, just not your movies.
Well, we can keep the hip hop alive then, my friend. I said a hip hop, a hippity hop. Let's do it. Oh, next one. Here we are. Oh, Bears looking to trade Chase Claypool. Who would like him? Nobody is the answer. But that was Jake Lindland,
the New Jersey
$1.99.
Generals.
We appreciate you. There you go. Brian Durkee, $1.99. Tank Dell or Zay Flowers for season long. Thanks. I tried to ask him if it was PPR or half point PPR. That kind of matters to me. I think it's probably weirdly to say Tank Dell for me, but
agreed.
It's wild to say at this point in time. What a shout out to, Loughy just smashed that call. Fantasy Guru 76, $5. Best running back, 6 to 7K on FanDuel. So we're heading back to the FanDuel streets, my friends. FanDuel, 6 to 7K. He wants to know which running back should we be getting to the most, Matt Gajewski.
Man, that's hard to make me pick. Do you have a feel on this?
No.
Not at all.
I'm pulling up FanDuel here right now. I didn't play FanDuel today because, I want them to care about us more. Jerome Ford, 6,400 is looking okay for me. Ramondre Stevenson, again, now the reports about Ezekiel Elliott, he is still popping in terms of projection, but then the ownership's there 10.5% at 6,400. Wild to see that there. I really have no problem with Alvin Kamara there. 6,500 for that. Miles Sanders in that game environment against Minnesota. He is the most popular in this range, 21.4%, but I kind of think it's justified. Hubbard's not going to be seeing the field in competitive games here in those spots. You had the Bryce Young touchdown driver. Hubbard got everything in garbage time. That's not going to be the norm. So cool. Rashad White's all right at 6,900 and James Cook. I would say in terms of priority, Miles Sanders, I think that's decent enough chalk. Alvin Kamara sitting there in a nice spot as well. And rounding it out, super contrarian piece, but James Conner, anybody who's got this kind of a workload, I'm willing to blindly play them even in like the worst matchup possible. So James Conner, 6,300 if you're trying to get weird with it.
Yeah, thanks for stalling for me. Didn't know you weren't playing FanDuel. I'm playing a little bit of FanDuel, but I accidentally signed out of my exposure, so I didn't have them ready at hand. But
do you have them now?
Yes, it's Kamara. Kamara's my most owned in that range. So apologies. What I am playing just accidentally signed out. Kamara's my most owned. From there, it's actually A-Chain 2 for me.
Okay, A-Chan, by the way. A-Chan.
Yeah, I don't know when he decided to pronounce his name differently because they've been saying A-Chain for 6 years now. Anyway,
it's his name. I'm going to allow him to say it. I think that.
Yeah, I just have 4 years of experience saying it the same way.
I know. Texas
A&M.
It's
going to take a little bit. Yeah, he was sick there.
He was so disgustingly good. Let's continue on our merry way. Wanted to throw it out there too. Not even 50% filled. That OwnersBox main contest would be ridiculous if you didn't jump in over there. Again, they're going to be just phenomenal in terms of value for you today, in terms of your expected value going into today. You're also going to get a $5 lightning lineup when you sign up there, another $5 contest ticket, so many great things, as well as they'll double your deposit up to $250. So really good stuff over at OwnersBox. We talked through a little bit of lineup building over there. You saw the interface, super easy to get a hold of. Plus, the Sims tool works directly in conjunction with OwnersBox. Take advantage of it, yes? Yeah, I would do that. As we head to wide receiver, my friends, again, running back, pretty great in-depth coverage there from Matt Gajewski. Wide receiver, it's terrifying as well, where, I can't be playing all the expensive guys that I wanted to once upon a time. And Justin Jefferson, he's gotten trimmed more and more and more by me as the days have gone on here since Thursday's show on the matchup show with Loughy. Thought I was going to just be jamming that game stack. Not as much anymore because 9,600, really tough to be getting to. Tyreek Hill, you get Jalen Waddle back, but we know what that upside can be at 9,200 as well. Do you have a preference between the two? And are you over the field or below the field on either one of them?
Below the field on both. I have more Tyreek Hill. And again, that's just a game that I'm trying to play more of. Seeing ownership, at least projected ownership, come down on it throughout the week. As that's happened, I've increased my exposures to it personally. I'm not super exposed to Tyreek Hill. I think I'll come in right around the field. Jefferson, I'll certainly be below.
Death, taxes, and Eric singing on Stokastic. Good luck today. Ghetto Farmer Boy, you are so welcome. I stay flossing in my candy pane, rolling dank, sip a drink on an 84 swang. I can't help it. That's what I do.
At least you're singing a song I know today.
There you go. Malcolm Revamp, $1.99. Eric, what are your QB RB you get the most for both sites? FanDuel already said flat out not playing it here today. Worried about my DraftKings OwnersBox goodness again. I like overlay. Do you? Do you? I would like overlay if I were you. Let's do that, friends. But yeah, running back on FanDuel, not going to be able to speak intelligently about it. But on DraftKings, I will tell you, quarterbacks I'm getting the most of. I will get back into my exposures. It is Anthony Richardson, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, Justin Fields. God, the Justin Fields one makes me want to just vomit all over my keyboard.
You might end up doing that watching the game.
It's true. Running back, Christian McCaffrey, number 1, Kyron Williams, number 2, Tony Pollard, number 3, and Joe Mixon, number 4. Why am I the way that I am? I don't know. Joe Mixon. Don't feel good about that one either. We continue on our merry way to wide receiver, though, my friends, and this is the range that you have been waiting for. You've been waiting for Matt to break this down. Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, A.J. Brown in terms of contrarian builds, Jalen Waddle in terms of contrarian Miami builds. Oh, Lordy, oh, Lordy, oh, Lordy. So much ownership coming in on Keenan Allen. Devontae Adams now even in this spot with a rookie quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. Still pulling quite a bit of ownership here. Stephon Diggs obviously pulling ownership too. How are you parsing through this upper 7, lower 8K range, Matt?
I'm playing a ton of it, playing mostly the games I'm overexposed to. So I have a fair amount of Keenan Allen. I think I'll come in around the field. I might come in slightly under, even though he's one of my most owned players. I'm kind of trying to just be a little more flat to this range. The second most owned player in this range for me is Jamar Chase. Awesome role, and it was kind of a role change. Instead of using him downfield as much, they used him more around the line of scrimmage. But what it led to was more targets overall. Rather than catching a long touchdown, his game simply could just be he catches 4 or 5 gimme balls and has more yards after contact. With that said, I have no issues with the other players in this range. Diggs I'm using almost exclusively in stacks, whether it be as a run back on the Miami side or just with Allen straight up. I think the best thing we can say about Adams, when we knew that Garoppolo was going to be out and O'Connell was going to be the starter, the line didn't change drastically. So that's kind of what I'm using as a proxy here. I think if it was Brian Hoyer, you would have seen this absolutely plummet. But thankfully, we don't have McDaniel running out his good old boy Brian Hoyer as the starter here. Thank goodness. But yeah, other than that, A.J. Brown, Waddle, I think are going to be pretty contrarian if you're willing to include those players in this range.
I would agree with that. We just got a report. Well, it was actually a tweet that came from a report. Alvin Kamara bracing for full workload, in quotes. This.
Yeah, he better be. I mean, he's been doing nothing for 3 weeks.
Literally been sitting on the pine, and why would they want Tony Jones? Like, I was pretty much projecting him there. The problem is the matchup for me. I think there's a lot of people that are going to face the Tampa Bay defense and is going to sell out to do things to stop the run eventually here. Well, I mean, they've been stopping the run eventually. They've been more of a pass funnel throughout the last couple seasons, and I think that's going to continue here. Even just, 103 rushing yards per game. Alvin Kamara, obviously, you're playing, hoping he can get involved in the passing game yet again. Didn't really show it last season. Let's get back to that. That would be cool. 6,100. Yeah, I could see that price tag going either direction here based on his usage here, but I'm not completely over the moon to just jam him in that spot with that report. Anything you want to comment about that?
Not really. I think you broke it down well. Watch the inactives for Tampa Bay. Run defense, if Vita Vea is out or something like that, Devin White might not be as formidable as we think. All
right. Tons of super chats to get to here quick before we continue on our way. Malcolm Revamp, $1.99. We already did that one. Moneyball J, $2. DK tiers. Who do you like in each tier? I'm going to pull that up here as we go along. Mike, $3. Favorite cash game QB for DK is?
Anthony Richardson.
Mine too. Nicholas Lynn, $5. We got Javonte Williams, Joshua Kelly, Kyron Williams. Who has a higher ceiling, Matt Gajewski?
Kyron.
Kyron for both floor and ceiling.
Yes.
Jorge Yakom, $10. Any love for Hurts stacks? We haven't even brought up Jalen Hurts on this program. Him and A.J. Brown, I guess I did say his name there at 7,700. I kind of like getting to Devonta Smith with him in this one. But either way, how are you handling any Philly stacks?
I don't think it's going to be a spot where you need to play like a ton of Hurts to get over the field. I'm at 8%, and I kind of think I'm going to be over the field. The player I have the most stacks with is A.J. Brown. Second is Dallas Goedert. We'll talk about tight ends later, but it kind of makes me nervous not having a ton of Devonta Smith. He's coming in under 5% in my lineups. Just a really close price tag to A.J. Brown, and anytime that happens, I would prefer the more talented player, but you don't feel good about it. Devonta Smith could go off on any particular day, but I like these guys as leverage plays. They're not owned at all.
All right. I'm pulling up DraftKings tiers here for my guy, Moneyball J. We will fire this one up. Chase Anderson scratched every pitcher on earth. Anybody playing MLB DFS today? No. Okay, just me. Good talk. Glad we had it. Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Tua. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to list off our highest projected here in addition to who I would have the highest owned as I ran 150. There we go. Jalen Hurts is actually the highest projected there. I would have the most of him as well. Looking at Keenan Allen for tier 2, for tier 3, Stephon Diggs, for tier 4, Josh Jacobs, for tier 5. That's a tough one. Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields are projected like identically. They're going to do it in different ways. I would be going to Justin Fields, tier 6. Looking at this, I've got Zach Moss there. Deebo Samuel is the highest projected, though. He is expected to play for what it's worth. Tier 7, James Cook, and tier 8, Kyron Williams by a mile. Let's get ourselves back to it here. The wide receiver position, 5K, 6K. Oh, I'm going to open up the board to you, my friend. Who are some of the wide receivers you're getting the most exposure to in this range?
Tricky range. I don't find myself landing here a ton, playing more of the stars and scrubs, if you will. But I do think there are some guys you can get to. Gabe Davis, good leverage play off Stephon Diggs always. DeAndre Hopkins should have really good volume. Seems to be pretty banged up, so I question the efficiency. And Ryan Tannehill under center hasn't exactly gone well for this team. Down below, you have Tutu Atwell pivot off of Nakua. I like Jacoby Myers a lot, even with O'Connell under center, Devontae Adams still there. Again, the line didn't drop a ton. George Pickens is one of my most owned in this range. Sneaky game, Pittsburgh and Houston. So those of you that are getting contrarian, I do not fear Houston's secondary or defense for that matter. Pickens seeing an uptick in targets without Johnson in the fold. So I think he is particularly strong. And I like these guys as leverage off Sutton. We discussed this briefly at the top. I think Sutton's going to come in more owned than we think. Russell Wilson's going to carry a fair amount of ownership, and those people just forcing stacks are going to be naturally funneled to Sutton. Judy's too expensive. Marvin Mims doesn't have a good role. You don't have a tight end of consequence on the roster. I think Sutton is going to be by far the most popular pairing with Russell Wilson. So I'll look to play some of those guys we just mentioned above. Don't have a ton of guys below this. Marquise Brown's going to be active. I think he's somewhat interesting. Michael Thomas. I'm worried about Jameis under center, but I think we might see Derek Carr. I think it's pretty optimistic he'll play. I don't know what the effectiveness is going to be like. Does he last the whole game? We'll see. So quarterback concerns for New Orleans kind of have me off their pass catchers altogether. And I think that about does it for 5Ks. Anything you see there?
That was like phenomenal stuff. I have no notes. Tutu Atwell, I'm playing alongside a lot of, I talked about the Rams Indy game. I just have a ton of that. Is there any other pass catcher on the Indy side I should be playing other than Michael Pittman? And then at some Kyler Granson, just because you have to play somebody at tight end. It's still a requirement in the year of our Lord 2023. So I can't figure out anything else that I would want to do. It feels like such a clear-cut game stack on both sides of it. I don't know why people aren't jamming it. It just feels too good to be true. So anything else from Indy I should be looking at from a pass catcher perspective? It's not Josh Downs day, right?
I think he's the next guy you'd go to. I'm not particularly optimistic. So many targets have been funneled Pittman's direction. Yeah, what does Downs need to do to like break this slate? It's going to be a run-heavy game plan from Indy, I'm anticipating, unless they just get down absolutely right away. We'll see about that. But so much is going to Pittman that I think I would rather just find the salary to play him and then punt in a different direction.
That is a good call out. Yeah, I really don't have anything else to add. I think you did a great job of breaking that down here in the mid-range. Want to just go to the bottom of the barrel here. I mean, I did bring up Josh Downs. He got targeted 12 times. Different quarterback, different scheme I'm expecting here for this one, and makes it a little less appealing to try to make him a thing. Not going to chase those targets in any way, shape, or form. I guess we got to at least talk about Josh Palmer now. 4K, Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnson. I have a take where I think Mike Williams, you just look at the body comp. I think it's so much easier to look at Quentin Johnston as a guy that you play on the outside immediately and fills that role for this football team. But Josh Palmer has shown some exceptional rapport at times with Justin Herbert, but that was absent Keenan Allen getting into the slot more last season at times as well. I'm not sure what to make of the entire situation. Can you help me?
I think Palmer is completely fine. We have a pretty big sample of these Chargers receivers getting hurt. Keenan Allen, a lot of times it's him. And it's not like targets get funneled to one player more than the other. Like Keenan had the phenomenal game in the most recent contest. I think he's the bet that you make here for the player to lead with targets the rest of the season. I think it's an easy bet. But we've seen spike weeks from all these scrubs. Palmer in the past, Guyton in the past, tight ends. So you could see any one of them pop up. I have no issues with Palmer at 4K. This is going to be a pass-heavy scheme, and they're pretty fast. Wide receiver 3, I think, is where things get interesting. I don't necessarily know that it's Quentin Johnson. He's basically playing the same amount of routes and snaps as Darius Davis, who's way, way underdrafted for Johnston. So I don't know. I have questions about Johnson and what he's going to do in this offense. He's come along really slowly. One other thing you might see them do is just play Gerald Everett and Donald Parham together a little bit more. It's a little easier to do that now without Eckler, but they're both receding tight ends. The guy they actually used to block is Trey McKitty. So do we see Everett and Palmer on the field at the same time? One of them in the slot? I don't know, but I think it adds a lot of risk to this wide receiver 3 position, which already I'm not sure is just Quentin Johnston by himself to begin with.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff, my guy. I'm going to be playing both, but Quentin Johnson, I think,
good, yeah,
has an opportunity to be the low-owned guy you need. First super chat from Mike. We talked about that earlier. Anthony Richardson, QB, cash game quarterback for both of us here. Jorge Yacom, we talked about that as well. And then Ryan Nelson, $2. Matty G, Hartman's a gamer. You smashed Four Loco, ? So obviously Notre Dame there with Mr. Hartman coming from Wake Forest, I believe it was. That was kind of a heartbreaking loss there for Duke. Felt bad for anybody that has become a football fan of theirs in the last week, which are probably all of their football fans because they've been terrible to that point. Look at Daniel Jones. But anything else that you want to give to Ryan? Any love?
Yeah, man, I'm sour on Duke right now. On Notre Dame. It took Duke missing 3 field goals, Duke fumbling in the red zone going into score, and a fake punt for Notre Dame to win that game. Barely got it done too. We'll see, but I'm probably going to be betting against the Irish quite a bit down the stretch here. Their schedule does not get easier.
Well, one of those places you could bet them is at Bet365, which has a ridiculous deal going right now. Bet365, friends, you bet $1, and you get $365 in bonus bets. That's an absolute joke. They had this offer a while back, and it is only available in the great states of New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, Iowa, and Kentucky. But if you're in one of those states, New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, Iowa, Kentucky, awesome for you. Bet $1 at the link below. Get yourself $365 in bonus bets, no strings attached. Awesome stuff. Yeah, I got to deposit something on there. But yeah, bet $1, $365 into bonus bets, a ridiculous deal. There's really nothing else to add. If you're going to do that, you're going to do that. And you're going to take advantage of Matt Gajewski's college football advice. You're going to take advantage of my baseball advice. You're going to take advantage of, everything that we have going in the premium Discord there with Ben Rasa spitting hot fire in the soccer streets at 9 a.m. It's ridiculous, the kind of stuff that you can get access to here at Stokastic at the Odd Shopper YouTube channels. So take advantage of that in addition to $365 in bonus bets from Bet365, only for 21 and over. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's do this, my friend. We're going to go to the tight end position. Then we're going to build a couple of lineups in the lineup generator, and we're going to get ourselves the heck up out of here. Thank you to producer Jordan Klein for keeping the ship afloat and teaching me how to look at super chats like I'm an infant. That was great. To the tight end position we go. There are only a couple of guys that you're really spending any sort of salary allocation on. TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, George Kittle will throw into the mix here as well. Any of them that you're getting to? Because seems like the field's not.
I'm not getting to them much either. A lot of the games that these players are in aren't particularly intriguing, so you're not really giving up, all right, this game stack is going to be electric. I mean, I think the best case you could make for this is Kittle, just as massive favorites over Arizona, but I'm worried about Arizona pushing them and then San Francisco taking a run-heavy approach. Minnesota, Carolina is a decent stacking game, but Baltimore, Cleveland's horrific. I could see just ignoring this range almost altogether if that's the way you'd like to play it. I'm checking my exposures in the back end now. I have a little bit of Kittle, and that's really it.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be Hawkinson for me and not really a whole hell of a lot else. That's kind of is what it is. You know what I mean? It completely makes sense that nobody's getting there. If you're hand building some lineups, it makes sense to try to force in some Mark Andrews, even at a tough spot, George Kittle, even with all the other pass catchers active here, Brandon Ayuk coming back, Deebo Samuel expected to play. But I still think there's a case to be made where if one of them smashed, I don't think it would surprise any of us. It would surprise me if Taysom Hill did here at 4,500. Don't play Taysom Hill. But underneath that, you've got an entire range of dudes, and specifically Pat Freiermuth there at 3,400. You got Okonkwo there, 3,100 against Cincinnati, seeming to be somebody that just is being plugged and played for his role and price. But who are the tight ends you're getting to the most, Matt Gajewski, on this slate?
The tight ends I'm getting to the most are Chig Okonkwo and Freiermuth. With Okonkwo, the game is okay, but you don't have Burks there. Okonkwo actually is a dynamic tight end. He's one of the rare guys you can actually line up in the slot and use down the field. They've been very close to hitting him on a couple of those opportunities this year, narrowly missed. His volume's not any better or worse than anyone else in this range. So that's something I am going to be taking a bit over the field on. I mean, it's like he's 17% of my lineup, so it's not crazy. Freiermuth second at 16. I'm trying to spread myself at tight end more than anything else. Otherwise, Ertz, I have a fair amount of him. He's exclusively in San Francisco stuff. I hate him as a one-off. Just the least dynamic player you can imagine being on the field. But he gets a ton of targets. I think most likely outcome for him in like cash games or something, unless you're running San Francisco stacks, is 10 targets, 4 catches, 20 yards. Maybe he falls in the end zone. But this range, I think, is particularly strong for tournaments. I like the Buffalo guys. People seem to be confused on them. Dawson Knox just has a far more bankable role right now over Kincaid, who is one of the lowest ADOTs in football. With that said, he's a first-round tight end. He plays more like a receiver than a tight end. He could pop off at any point. Smythe is okay. He's an attachment to that offense. But I like a couple GPP plays a lot. Jake Ferguson going almost completely unowned in
South
this range.
Dakota's finest.
I didn't know he was from there.
Yes, Rapid City, South Dakota.
He's got an awesome role, just hasn't been able to hit pay dirt quite yet, but it's going to come at some point. And then Dalton Schultz, similar player. I mean, former Dallas tight end himself. His volume is pretty good, just efficiency hasn't been there and hasn't found the end zone. I like him quite a bit as a leverage play too. I don't really see any difference between these two players or these two players versus like Smythe, Okonkwo, the Buffalo tight ends, but there is a difference in projected ownership.
Definitely. Let's see what had happened. Oh, Jake Lindland, another $1.99 super chat. We appreciate you, my guy. DK single entry, have Puka. So Kyron Williams or DeAndre Swift with that information. It doesn't change it for me. It would be Kyron Williams.
Agreed.
Cool. Let's get ourselves out of here then almost. I mean, we got to get to the defense. I said, we'll build out some stuff over in the lineup generator, which is phenomenal. It's only $14.95 to get in per week. Again, if you are in a time crunch, if you haven't been able to build out your lineups, we're basically filtering the best lineups for you, putting them together in a simple, easy to access place and giving you some choice too, where you can have single entry, you can have run backs, you can have things of that nature. And you're going to be able to use those tools to help you win some cash here using our projections and our ownership projections in conjunction with just being able to click a couple of buttons and getting you access to winning lineups, to positive EV lineups. That is what we're going for. That's the goal of these shows, to help you get good information to build better lineups. Who are the players that we're prioritizing in some of these spots? Who are we not prioritizing and why? Using chalky lineups, balanced lineups, contrarian lineups, being able to put together specific ways of looking at the algorithm and analyzing player data, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, is project out our lineups better than other lineups in the same contest. So this is a great way to be able to do that. You can save them. You can throw them together. You can sort by optimal. You can sort by, more contrarian type lineups as well. You can look at your individual stack exposures, player exposures, everything there. Oh my God, we have 85% Keenan Allen. Holy crap. It's almost like he's a good play, Matt Gajewski.
He's a very good play. Love Keenan Allen. Going to see a monster target share.
Not even 30% of anybody else. That's kind of a beautiful allocation of salary, a beautiful allocation of player exposures going down the line. Puka Nacua, Javonte Williams. Oh, See, this is where I would be going in. I would be clicking removing somebody at plugging in other people that aren't Javonte Williams. I'm talking him into a 35 burger today, Matt.
Isn't that how it always goes?
Yeah. You don't know what you got till it's gone. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. That wasn't rap.
I know that song, but I don't know. Like, I recognize the lyrics.
I think it was Joni Mitchell. I think so.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Okay, good. I did not expect you to, but you're lovely. So is the lineup generator, friends. I would be taking advantage of that. Also, check out OwnersBox. This is ridiculous. Not even 50% filled. This is going to be a massively overlaid contest today. 15 minutes to go. If you're building a couple of lineups right now, do it at OwnersBox over anywhere else. Okay, just hit the 50% mark then. Just. Unbelievable stuff here. The 35K to first, 175K kickoff for today. Going to be an awesome thing to get to. Just like it is to get to some of these defenses. You alluded to it earlier in the program, my friend, that there were some defenses that you had more interest in because of some news that had come out. I'm assuming it's about the rookie quarterbacks, but maybe I'm wrong. Who are the defenses that you are alluding to?
Definitely the rookie quarterbacks. That Baltimore game, ton of interest there. You should have immediately been considering Cleveland. On DraftKings specifically, price adjusted at 2,800. I think you could argue they should be the most expensive defense on the entire slate in that game environment, facing Lamar Jackson down his top two pass catchers, down Ronnie Stanley, most likely. Myles Garrett's going to feast. But now on the other side, Baltimore should be pretty intriguing to you as well. If for nothing else, just the fact that he'll be facing a rookie signal caller and probably a neutered offense. Those are
a neutered offense? That's a mean way of putting it.
Well,
a balls cut off offense?
Do you have a better way to describe it?
Neutered is fine. Continue.
All right. I don't have anything else really to say about those two. I think it's when you start looking at pivots where things get interesting. I don't love paying up for Eagles, 49ers, Dallas, even though I think they're all in good spots. Every dollar that you spend on this slate does go a long way today. So one place I do think is interesting is playing the defenses in like a chalk game, a risky chalk game. Denver and Chicago. Chicago's cheap. I hate their defense. It's terrible. But would you be all that surprised if Russell Wilson has a bad game? I personally would not be terribly surprised. And then from there, it's just targeting some of the other poor signal callers on this slate. Again, you've got an injured Derek Carr or Jameis Winston if he can't make it through the whole game. There's some injury news in that contest, but 33 Buccaneers has interest to me. Chargers, 3,100. They have a ton of injury news here too, but they'll be facing Aiden O'Connell at 31. That's particularly interesting. New England has a pretty good defense facing Dak, who turns the ball over a ton. That's interesting to me. Generally, my approach to defense is to spread it, play what fits in your lineup, and make concessions elsewhere if you need to. But I think right away, Browns, Ravens, Chargers should probably be three you're looking at heavily.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I would also love it if you guys would smash that like button for us here. We got 12 minutes before lock. We'll be able to take some questions here because we kind of flew through this slate. I know that we had the Kyron Williams news that broke 2 weeks ago, which I believe was our last show together. That worked out nicely. So stuff can still happen in these last 12 minutes that can be extremely important to help you build phenomenal lineups going into this week, or complete dog shit like I'm expecting to have happen when the Rams and the Colts inevitably score 0 points.
Maybe.
That's what I think.
Maybe.
I think they have to score at least 3. Has there ever been an NFL game that finished 2-0?
I don't think so.
Got to get Scorigami on that. Jordan Klein, do some research. Dude, Scorigami is one of the great Twitter accounts.
Stats and info, Jordan Klein. Get us the info.
Yeah. We don't have ESPN stats and info. We have just Jordan Klein. Do everything. Wear all of the hats.
To be at that game, can you imagine?
I would poke my eyes out, I'm pretty sure. Also, what month was that in? Like, could you imagine Chicago in December going to a football game like that? Oh, thank you.
Green Bay would be the same.
Oh, yeah, they'd both be just atrocious. Anyway, especially 1938, you get to wear those little, like, brown helmets, no mouth guard, just murdering your fellow man for nothing. then you have to go work your normal job at the coal mines.
It's about the love of the game, Eric. That's something we've lost.
Yeah, Patrick Cantley lost it too for the U.S. Ryder Cup. That's a conversation for a different day, friends. We got 10 minutes to go. Congrats to Europe and all that stuff. Good job, guys. Good job. Good effort, U.S. Not really. But your favorite stacks to get to on today's slate to recap for the people.
Ooh, stacks. Herbert, Tua.
Stacks.
I mean, like, my two most owned quarterbacks right now are DTR and Richardson, and I didn't force stacks with them, so it's, kind of tricky. But for stacking purposes only, Herbert, Tua would be my top two. What about Thompson. You for stacks?
I didn't have any DTR really, and you just brought him up, and I feel like I should have some DTR, shouldn't I?
Yeah, I mean, you can jam all the studs and he runs. You could also fail miserably. I'm overexposed to rookie quarterbacks. And the chat brought this up earlier. Far from a safe thing. I realize that. I'm willing to take on the risk.
All right. Well, that'll be fun for everybody involved. We still have 3.2K people hanging out here right now. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you for trusting us to give you the information here. Leading it into NFL Lock. Yet again, it is the third or fourth year of Matt and I doing this together. It is phenomenal. It is an opportunity that we do not take lightly. We're also utilizing all of the great tools here at Stokastic to help us do it. If you haven't checked out the lineup generator, talked about that earlier, check out the Sims tool as well. I'm finishing my lineups and throwing them together here as well. I'm going to have to get a little bit of DTR in my life because, I alluded to them earlier where UCLA, they are miserable now. Usually that's a good sign that a quarterback might be missed or just that Chip Kelly's a terrible coach. It's one of the two.
He was really good with DTR. Did you watch UCLA?
I did watch him. I watched him a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say you're West Coast. I don't know if typically they don't have a home field advantage. People don't like UCLA, but
I have noticed that. It's actually no. People don't like USC from time to time. They're kind of the polarizing team of Los Angeles, but UCLA, I feel like they're just kind of there now. Like they're there. I'm going to the UCLA Colorado game. That'll be fun.
Yeah, dude, have fun there. Anyway, DTR, for as risky as he is, I think he comes with a pretty good floor rushing. The one question I have with that is, do they use it? But I mean, it's his best skill. And the way I kind of look at this, if you are a rational coach, yeah, running could get him hurt and you lose games if he's hurt, but you also lose games if you don't run him. So why not use his skills to maximize what your team can actually do on the field?
Why do you have to make sense? Why make sense of a situation where,
like imagine God if the Bears use that logic. It's like, oh man, if we get Fields hurt, we lose games. It's like, well, you're not using him the way he should be. You're still losing games. Maybe run the ball with your best player. I don't know. Doesn't seem like
he needs to be a pocket passer to succeed. We saw that last season when he made Bears games competitive, actually.
It's like, how you don't want to use your best player skill. How would you like to lose? Because you're doing that anyway.
Pretty much. All right. I have my lineups officially in. Oh man, playing chalk Keenan Allen. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Hamstring.
You'll feel really good when you win the Millie.
Yeah, I'll feel even worse if you had told me him or Mike Williams who would get hurt first, don't we all pick Keenan Allen?
I'm not betting on injuries.
I'm not either. I'm just saying that it was like inevitable one was going to happen. That was the whole idea of like I stashed Palmer or Quentin Johnson in pretty much every single year-long league where it just kind of made sense as the thing to do. But anyway, I know you guys have some questions. Michael, $4.99. He asked Downs or Calvin Austin. That I was not expecting to read.
Austin for me. I think that's a pretty fun range of cheap guys at receiver, like Austin down there. I think there's some pivots too if you want to get really greasy with your receivers. So not just those two guys.
So who is the greasiest guy that you got? Who's the car mechanic play of the day?
The greasiest receiver in my lineups. Braxton Berrios.
Josh Downs is
Nelson
definitely the guy now for me.
Nelson Aguilar, Braxton Berrios. Those have got to be the two.
Is this a preseason slate?
I wish. I love the
I kind of do too. That would be awesome.
Preseason slates rule.
They do. Why do I have so many? Oh, yeah. I was going to say, because I had made fun of Josh Downs earlier. Then all of a sudden I was like, I should probably give him a boost and get to a little bit there. Calvin Austin against Houston. Don't completely hate it. It isn't Allen Robinson. I'm going to throw that out there. He has not been the answer.
I think he might just be washed. He's not even earning targets.
So, because he had it once upon a time.
Oh, he was sick, but he's just like 30 years old now, man. And he's had ACL tears and severe injuries. At some point in time, he just don't got it anymore.
Yeah, at some point in time, you don't got it anymore. Like me on a putting green, but it's okay. It's okay. Things are coming around. Putting in that work, Devin. Don't give up. That's all I have for you here.
I don't know who Devin is.
It's a commercial.
In the chat?
No, it's a commercial. It's literally a DJ Khaled commercial.
Sounds sick. And yes, in the chat, I like Chigo Okonkwo. He's my most on tight end.
Yeah, Chigo Okonkwo. You brought him up earlier.
Parham, I think, is fine too. I see people talking about Parham.
Oh my God. I mean, he has an ADOT of like 1 yard and it's all to the end zone.
Well, yeah, when you get targeted from the 1 yard line, you can't have a very high ADOT.
No.
One guy we didn't mention I want to bring up briefly is Tanner Hudson for Cincinnati at the Stone Min. He's going to play a fair amount today, and Burrow, in the right game script, even with his calf, they're going to drop him back a ton. So I think he's live at the Stone Min.
Who was that?
Tanner Hudson.
I don't know who that is.
He's a preseason star. He's the best preseason tight end of all time.
Okay. Well, I don't know who he fucking is. So there's that.
Well, he's the third string tight end on the Bengals, but their backup Drew Sample can only block. He has bricks for hands. So they played Tanner Hudson a lot in the pass game.
Well, I just clicked on his face. That's a thing. This is what we come to Gajewski for. Give me the absolute 1%, the 0.1 percenters as we get out of here. And then if they bink for a milli, we're just going to share the living crap out of that on social.
And they took him in the second round.
Why did they?
I don't know. Why did the Packers take DeGuara in the third and AJ Dillon in the second? Questions we'll never know the answers to.
Because life has no meaning and this is all irrelevant.
Life has meaning. Football rules.
I was kidding. Football is fantastic and sports are neat and we like them very, very much, friends. I've got a buddy asking me Parm or Everett midday slate. What are you doing? It's 3 minutes before lock. You think I have time to answer that text?
Everett.
And it's obviously Everett. What are we doing here?
Everett.
Y'all are so sleeping on Gabe Davis. What do you think about Gabe Davis in Buffalo today?
I thought I brought him up briefly. I thought he was an excellent leverage play in that range.
I thought you brought him up too, but then maybe
I was briefly. It was like in a slew of players that I think you could use this leverage. But yeah, I specifically gave him a boost in my Buffalo stacks, which is I have a fair amount of that game. So yeah, I like Gabe Davis. I think he's a fine leverage play. If the tournament's big enough, yeah, no problems with that.
All right. I need to get my Adam Thielen run back, double check on that. For my main lineup, there we are. Go Kirk Cousins, go Justin Jefferson, go TJ Hawkinson. God forbid this lineup actually does well for me. How dare I have success? Cool. 2 minutes to go, friends. Hit that like button. Thank you to Jordan Klein here as we're rounding out the show as well. Thank you for spending your Sundays hanging out with us. Gajewski. We're going to get ourselves the heck up out of here. Don't forget OwnersBox too. You could probably get a lineup or two in the next minute and 10 seconds in over there. But any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Thank you guys for spending your Sundays with us. It's a real pleasure to be able to do this for you. Love football and spending this morning with you guys really more than anything. So just thank you again. We appreciate it very much.
Somebody said Logan to Howell all day. I think not. I hope not.
If you're playing that, whoever sent that in chat, I hope you win the millie.
I hope you do too, because you probably deserve it. You probably deserve it. Thank you, Jordan Klein. Let's get ourselves the heck up out of here and go watch ourselves some NFL Sunday football. OwnersBox, sign up. $250 you can get as a bonus match. Great stuff from them. He's Gajewski. He's really cool and drinks Four Locos and stuff. I'm Eric. I'm not cool. I'm probably going to go just sit around. See you guys later.